The battlefield layout shows that the fighting was relentless, with only weapons and fallen soldiers' bodies left on the ground. A massive horde of monsters and terrible beasts moves forward without mercy, destroying everything in its path. Facing a huge protective wall, several wounded and desolate survivors take shelter in a makeshift camp. In the middle of all that sadness, young Kyoya tries to ask a question, calling his companion uncle, but ends up getting a chop to the head. F-rank hunter Tenma Tsukishiro playfully complains and tells him to call him Big Brother, or at least use his name. Rubbing his sore head, Kyoya asks if it is really okay for a hunter to hit a helpless civilian like that. Tenma laughs and comments that Kyoya knows nothing about real hunters, since he himself is just a talentless F-rank without any skills for 20 years. He points to the main stage and explains that a real hunter is someone like Kakeru Amamiya, the legendary SSS rank. It all started 20 years ago, when mysterious portals appeared out of nowhere and terrible monsters invaded the world to fight this threat. The system chose special people and gave them incredible powers to battle. It was these brave warriors who managed to save humanity from the brink of total extinction. Among them, the ones with the greatest powers formed an elite group known as the 11 Finals to protect the world. However, the monsters also had demons, beings of absolute strength that far surpassed the power of the 11 Finals. Cornered by the devastating attacks of the demons, humanity was pushed to its last line of defense. Heavily wounded, Amamiya announces that 6 of his legendary companions have already passed away, leaving only 5 to withstand the enemy army. Despite the despair, he assures that they still have one last trick up their sleeve to turn around that terrible situation. A female hunter approaches holding a glowing golden hourglass, saying that this is the chance to undo all the suffering. She throws the magic artifact into the air as a mysterious light begins to radiate from it. Suddenly, a huge explosion of golden energy consumes the area, starting from the hourglass. Amamiya explains that this unique item can create a portal to send someone back 20 years into the past, but he warns that only one person can cross and take on the mission to stop the demon invasion before it is too late. People begin to whisper nervously about the past, wondering who would be the ideal warrior to carry this burden. Amidst the despair, the crowd starts chanting Amamiya's name, begging the strongest hunter to change everyone's fate. Watching from afar, Tenma comments to Kyoya that it must be amazing to get the chance to go back in time. Kyoya smiles sadly and says that if he could go back, he would just like to see his parents' faces one more time. Hearing the young boy's sincere wish, Tenma places his hand on his head in a gentle gesture of comfort. Meanwhile, the crowd's shouting for the strongest hunter grows louder and deafening. The female hunter gently touches Amamiya's shoulder and asks if he is finally ready to accept this important mission. She insists that he is the only one capable of going back, defeating the demons, and saving humanity once and for all, with determination. Amamiya accepts the burden and promises he will do whatever it takes to secure everyone's future. But in the blink of an eye, he notices a terrible threat coming from the sky and screams desperately for her to dodge. Giant, dark tentacles shoot down at high speed toward the stage and the entire crowd. Quickly, the female hunter extends her hands to raise a protective magic barrier. The impact of the enemy attack against the barrier triggers a devastating and terrifying explosion. With a loud crack, the protective barrier begins to shatter under the overwhelming force of the demons. She is completely stunned to see her strongest defense destroyed so easily. The dark, destructive shockwave rushes forward unimpeded, obliterating everything in its path. Seeing a huge piece of debris falling toward them, Kyoya screams desperately for his uncle. Without hesitating, Tenma rushes forward and grabs the young boy to pull him out of the line of destruction. With one last push, he shoves Kyoya away to save him from the impending collapse. Kyoya cries hysterically as he watches Tenma get buried by the rubble with a serene smile on his face. The violent impact tears up the ground and kicks up a dense cloud of smoke and dust across the entire area. Lying on the ground and badly injured, the young boy opens his eyes with difficulty and starts calling out for his uncle. With a bleeding face and blurry vision, he tries to get up to search for him amidst the devastation. He runs frantically through the rubble, screaming Tenma's name over and over. When he finds him buried, Tenma gives a faint smile and uses his remaining strength to say he had already told him to call him Big Brother. Right then, Tenma's injured body, which fell right in the center of the active portal, begins to glow with an intense golden light. A system screen appears before him, announcing that the time distortion will be properly corrected. The message confirms that the return item was successfully activated at that exact moment. With a blinding glow, the system initiates the regression of F-rank hunter Tenma Tsukishiro back 20 years into the past. The powerful beam of golden light shoots through the sky among the debris, catching the attention of all the surviving hunters. Shortly after, the glow completely fades, leaving behind only thick gray dust and massive destruction. Frantic, the female hunter shouts, asking who was the crazy person that dared to step into the time return portal. The legendary Amamiya stares in total shock at the ruined spot, unable to believe what just happened. Red system screens flash warnings about a time distortion and activate an emergency adjustment protocol to fix the error in 30 minutes. Floating in the dark, Tenma wonders if he really made it back, and if a weak hunter like him can stop the future demon invasion. The system screen turns blue and confirms the success of the regression. Displaying the F-rank hunter's zeroed stats and total lack of skills, Tenma opens his eyes and finds the holographic screen floating before him, realizing he actually returned to the past. On his knees in the grass, he looks around at the sunny forest and tries to process if he truly went back 20 years in time. Suddenly, a sharp scream of desperation echoes from somewhere nearby, shattering the quiet of the forest. Hearing the terrifying sound, Tenma quickly gets up and dashes toward the noise to investigate what is happening. He hides behind a thick tree and spots a small group of goblins armed with axes and wooden clubs. Frustrated, Tenma realizes he is trapped inside a portal and laments that, even after returning to the past, he is still scared of simple goblins. He knows that to get out, he needs to find the exit or complete the quest, but without any combat skills, that seems impossible. A red system screen pops up out of nowhere before his eyes, showing a countdown of just over 24 minutes. As the goblins walk through the forest, the flash of a sharp blade cuts through the air with lethal speed. Taken aback by the sudden attack, the green monsters shriek in terror as they realize the danger. In the blink of an eye, the goblins' bodies are sliced apart and defeated effortlessly by a mysterious force. One of the goblin heads falls right near where Tenma is hiding, leaving him stunned by such brutality. He smiles in relief upon realizing there is another real hunter nearby, thinking about approaching to ask for help getting out, but his relief vanishes when a dark, terrifying figure emerges from the dust holding a massive bloody sword. Tenma recognizes the fearsome dual-sword warrior known as Chulin and begins to tremble in terror. It is a legendary named monster, an extremely violent creature that even the strongest hunters fear to fight. Terrified for his life, he wonders what such a killer monster is doing in a simple portal, when suddenly another hunter runs past. The young warrior in green armor dashes through the woods in panic, shouting that someone is slaughtering monsters and hunters indiscriminately. Right behind him, the terrifying Chulin appears wielding his giant blood-soaked sword with a sadistically cold glare. Feeling the overwhelming presence of the creature behind him, the young hunter looks back in complete shock. The monster Cullen raises his heavy sword, preparing to land a fatal blow on the helpless guy. The massive blade comes swinging down at top speed to cut the green-armored warrior in half. At the very last split second, Tenma heroically leaps forward and tackles the hunter out of the way, saving him from a strike that shatters an entire tree. The two roll across the forest floor as the brutal impact of the sword kicks up a huge cloud of dirt and dust. The young hunter groans in pain, confused by what just happened and by Tenma's sudden appearance. Out of breath and heart-pounding, Tenma looks back and realizes the monster is not going to stop hunting them. Quickly, he grabs the hunter's hand and helps him grip his sword tight so they can fight back. Tenma yells for the guy to run as fast as he can, and both bolt into the woods to try and lose the monster. Chulin slams his blade into the spot where they were standing, carving a huge crater in the ground and destroying the nearby plants. The legendary monster bares his sharp teeth and snarls in pure rage after realizing his prey managed to dodge the attack. Running wildly through the trees, Tenma feels hit by intense exhaustion and realizes he has to stop to catch his breath. He drops to his knees exhausted, cursing the terrible stamina of his F-rank body, while the green-armored hunter watches him standing up. Still trying to catch his breath, Tenma looks closely at the armor of the young guy next to him. He focuses on the crest drawn on the hunter's arm guard and recognizes the symbol of the Night Crow Guild. Tenma asks if he really belongs to the Night Crow Guild, and the guy nods, finding it odd that another hunter is there. In total shock, Tenma realizes he landed on the exact day and place of the tragic incident that marked hunter history. He remembers that this tragic event wiped out the entire guild after a legendary monster invaded an F-rank portal, taking out even the rescue team. With his heart hammering in his chest, Tenma knows he needs to get out of there as fast as possible if he wants to stay alive. He asks if the guy has a spare weapon and suggests they escape this cursed place together immediately. The young hunter agrees and opens his system panel to pull a sword out of his inventory to hand over to Tenma. But before he can do anything, a sharp blade swings through the air in a swift, silent strike right from behind the guy. The young hunter lets out a confused gasp as blood spurts from his fatally wounded chest. The guy's body collapses lifelessly onto the forest floor, and the killer cold-bloodedly steps on the fallen sword to prevent any reaction from Tenma. With no time to grieve the guy, Tenma quickly leans down and grabs the sword lying on the forest ground. Before he can recover, Chulin leaps nimbly and brings his sword down in a fast, ruthless strike. Tenma hurriedly raises his weapon and blocks the lethal blow, but groans in pain from the monster's crushing power. The devastating impact hurls him away, sending him skidding violently across the dirt. The hunter slams his back hard against a tree trunk and tumbles into a pile of dry branches and leaves. Tenma drops face down on the forest floor, completely helpless, hurt, and without the strength to move. With his face covered in blood, he spits up blood and realizes he is on the verge of dying from just a single hit from that legendary monster. As he groans in pain, Chulin slowly walks toward him with heavy steps, dragging his blades along the ground menacingly. In that moment of pure desperation, a red system screen pops up before him, announcing that only 4 seconds remain before the protocol activates. The system timer starts a fast countdown, and Tenma cannot comprehend the meaning of those numbers appearing in front of him. On the brink of death, he regrets coming back to the past only to die in an instant, wondering if the outcome would be different if Proto Amamiya were here. Watching the monster approach to deliver the finishing blow, Tenma bites his lip in sheer frustration over being so weak and talentless. When the countdown hits 0, he cries in despair, feeling like humanity's last hope just vanished so easily. Suddenly, the red system flashes and announces that the Deus Ex Machina protocol has executed to fully repair Tenma's flaws and adjust causality. A new blue notification pops up, informing him that he gained the special X-rank trait called Talentless Adjustment. The description reveals that the chance of obtaining new skills has increased, and that all experience gained will now be multiplied by 100,000 times. Tenma freezes completely speechless, trying to process the absurdity of having his experience multiplied by 100,000 times all at once. The system begins spamming messages, warning that he took severe damage and therefore gained the endurance skill at level 1 with the experience bonus. Multiple blue notifications pop up around him, showing the endurance skill leveling up instantly, while a green aura wraps around him. The system wraps up the process by announcing that the new endurance skill has successfully reached Level 10, which is the maximum limit. Tears of emotion stream down Tenma's face as he remembers that in his entire past life as a hunter, he could never level up that skill even once he checks out the maxed out skill stats, which reduce incoming damage by 25% and significantly lessen the pain felt. Feeling his strength return rapidly, Tenma realizes his weak, battered body can now move without any trouble at all. The monster Chulin strikes violently at the spot where the hunter was lying, digging a huge hole in the dirt with his heavy twin blades. However, Tenma manages to dodge the attack in time and leans firmly on his sword, facing the enemy with a renewed stance. He reflects on the new special rank trait he received, realizing the system is literally fixing his entire lack of talent. With an ironic smile, he finds it amusing that the balance of the universe was shifted just to save an ordinary, talentless hunter like him. In silence, he mentally apologizes to Kyoya for leaving him alone at the end of his past life, knowing how much the kid must have suffered from fear. He painfully remembers the terrible demon invasion and decides he must change the tragic fate of that ruined world so he can see the kid again in the future. Heart full of resolve, Tenma vows to use this insane experience multiplier to rewrite history and save humanity. Gripping the hilt of his sword with both hands, he takes a battle stance with a steady gaze, showing not a single trace of hesitation. Before him, the details of the special trait remain active as he prepares for the decisive showdown against the legendary monster. He finds it incredible that he scored a legendary max-level skill simply by surviving the enemy's first crushing strike. Holding the blade tight, Tenma smiles confidently, realizing he now has a real shot at making it out of this dangerous portal alive. Chulin growls in deep rage upon seeing his weak opponent stand back up, ready for battle. The creature leaps toward Tenma, swinging his twin swords in a deadly arc shrouded in terrifying red energy. With superhuman reflexes, Tenma pivots masterfully and uses his sword to parry the monster's brutal assault. Upon blade collision, a strong shockwave spreads out, and the system announces that the 100,000 times experience bonus activated successfully. Instantly, a new blue notification appears on the holographic screen, showing he just gained the swordsmanship skill at level 1. A barrage of level-up messages flashes rapidly before his eyes until the swordsmanship skill hits level 10 in a fraction of a second. From the force of Tenma's block, the monster Chulin gets pushed back through the air, briefly losing his balance. The monster lands on his feet nimbly on the grass, but notices the hunter in front of him now holds a flawless, balanced combat stance. Chulin lets out a confused growl of frustration, sensing that this human's strength and movement changed night and day out of nowhere, looking down at his sword. Tenma is shocked to see the system notification confirming his swordsmanship skill has already hit max level. He recalls that gaining a skill usually takes exhausting training or innate talent, making him realize just how insane his new power is. Tightening his fingers around the handle, he feels his connection to the blade completely change after maxing out swordsmanship at level 10. With a swift, elegant motion, Tenma performs a test slash through the air. Leaving behind a beautiful trail of glowing green energy, Chulin roars in fury and leaps down from above once more, bringing his heavy twin swords down to slice the hunter in one go. Demonstrating total composure, Tenma holds his sword horizontally to block the violent impact of the monster's aerial attack. The crushing force of the clash destroys the ground under Tenma's feet, unleashing a big explosion of dust and pebbles around the fighters. Tenma grits his teeth to withstand the heavy blow, while the system registers the simultaneous activation of his maxed-out endurance and swordsmanship skills. The hunter lets out a roar of determination, pushing with all his strength to deflect the enemy's heavy blade. With a quick, precise move, he parries the strike and throws the monster Chulin back, giving himself room to breathe. The monster slides across the dirt, and Tenma takes the chance to sprint in the opposite direction, planning his next move. Chulin bursts into a sarcastic laugh and starts spinning one of his swords at high speed, generating a sharp wind barrier around himself. Feeling the huge gap in combat power, Tenma realizes that just defending will not cut it and wonders what to do to close the gap. The monster unleashes a fast, dangerous gust of slashing wind directly at the hunter. Acting on pure instinct, Tenma takes a nimble leap backward, dodging the wind blade by mere inches. Chulin roars with hatred and attacks fiercely, forcing Tenma to dodge non-stop while realizing he must focus completely to predict the beast's next move. As he focuses his mind on the battle, a new system alert flashes on his screen, announcing the acquisition of the perception skill at level 1. Thanks to the 100,000 times multiplier bonus, the perception skill starts leveling up instantly on Tenma's screen. The system flashes blue again, confirming that the perception skill reached level 10, which is the maximum limit allowed. Wrapped in mysterious purple energy, Chulin charges forward with both swords ready to slash the hunter without mercy. However, to Tenma's surprise, the monster's rapid attack now seems to move in slow motion through the air before him. He is totally stunned to realize that his field of vision and senses changed drastically out of nowhere. Tenma realizes he can now see everything around him with absolute clarity, including the precise path of every enemy attack. With a confident smirk, the hunter states that he can now perfectly read all of his opponent's moves. With surgical precision and fluid motion, he effortlessly sidesteps Chulin's deadly charge, letting the monster swing wide. The monster hits the ground hard, cracking the earth, while Tenma steps aside lightly without taking a single scratch. Thanks to level 10 perception, Tenma senses everything around him with crystal clarity, from the trees behind him to the subtle rustle of leaves in the wind. Amazed by his own power, he reflects that perception is truly a top-tier skill for any warrior. The hunter wonders if this is the kind of vision top warriors enjoy all the time, while the monster stares at him with a confused look. Chulin sheathes one of his swords on his back, switching his combat stance to a more focused attack style. With an intense blue glint in his eyes beneath his hood, the monster flashes a gruesome, bloodthirsty grin, prepping his next move. The creature claws at the ground with sharp talons, building up energy to launch a lightning-fast rush. In the blink of an eye, the monster rockets toward the hunter, leaving behind only a trail of dust and destruction. Chulin starts spinning in midair like a lethal whirlwind, throwing out multiple circular wind slashes at Tenma. Tenma dodges the rapid strikes with precise acrobatics, but realizes the deadly danger of that area of effect attack. He attempts a massive leap backward in an effort to clear the beast's whirlwind reach completely. The speed of Chulin's slash is so absurd that it leaves a glowing afterimage in the air, catching the hunter off guard. Tenma realizes with concern that he will not be able to block the attack fully if he keeps just retreating to escape the enemy's brutal rush. He forces one more quick step back with all the agility he can muster. Pushing his agility to the limit under pressure, the system sends an alert informing him that he gained the footwork skill at level 1. The 100,000 times experience multiplier kicks in once more, boosting the footwork skill to level 10 instantly. With maxed out speed, Tenma takes an insanely high and light leap backward, easily evading the creature's deadly strike. He lands flawlessly and glides smoothly across the dirt, creating a safe distance from the monster. Surprised by his own speed and mobility, Tenma jokingly remarks that he did not mean to jump that far back all at once. On the other side of the clearing, Chulin snarls in rage upon noticing he missed again, impatiently spinning his blade. Tenma takes a few steps and feels his body is extremely nimble, with insanely light and precise movements. With max-level swordsmanship and footwork, the hunter charges at top speed straight at the legendary monster. With full confidence in his new abilities, he dashes toward the enemy, shouting to himself that he can win now. Chulin tries to strike from above, but Tenma dodges masterfully and brings his blade close to the monster's neck to counter. The two warriors begin trading crazy fast and accurate blows in the forest, leaving behind only trails of white light in the air. The monster growls in fury as he realizes the human hunter is now keeping up and dodging all his attacks with ease. With a sarcastic smirk, Tenma faces the beast and mockingly asks how he likes his new combat speed. He launches himself forward and strikes downward, while the monster attempts to block the blow with his heavy sword from the ground. The brutal clash of forces triggers a massive plume of smoke and dust that can be seen rising over the forest trees. Inside the thick dust cloud, the two keep exchanging rapid, violent strikes nonstop. Wrecking the surrounding vegetation, Chulin lets out a roar of deep anger as every single attack gets effortlessly parried by Tenma's sword. The violent clash of their blades hits a climax, generating two massive energy blasts that split the battlefield in half outside the forest. A glowing blue energy portal floats in the air, while a mysterious figure in a black trench coat looks on from behind. Annoyed C-rank hunter Yuna Shiragane complains on her phone about who the idiot could be that got stuck inside a simple F-rank portal. She lets out a long sigh and mentions on the call that the time limit is up, so she will have to step into the portal to perform a rescue per protocol. Yuna hangs up her phone and reaches out to pull up the official info screen sent by the Hunters Association. The data reveals that the portal belongs to an ordinary rookie guild and that the estimated clearance time has long been exceeded. She sighs in boredom, picturing the rookie hunters just drinking and chilling somewhere inside instead of doing work. Activating her level 2 spatial teleportation skill, the young hunter steps into the blue portal heading into the forest. Upon touching down, Yuna freezes in front of a terrible trail of dismembered goblin bodies strewn across the ground. Horrified by the gruesome sight, she comments in disgust that the team made an unbelievable mess right at the forest entrance. Yuna walks carefully through the trees, calling out loudly for members of the Night Crow Guild to try and locate them. However, upon reaching a large clearing, she is left speechless by deep fissures in the ground and trees completely blown apart. Sweating from pure anxiety, she realizes it is impossible for a battle of that scale to take place inside a simple F-rank portal and that something is terribly wrong. From a distance, the hunter catches sight of two figures in the middle of the ruined clearing and nervously wonders what on earth is going on there. One of the warriors is Chulin, who is now missing an arm, covered in severe injuries, and leaning his exhausted body on his massive blade. On the other side of the clearing, Tenma is also barely standing, panting heavily while holding his blood-stained sword. Yuna trembles in fear as she senses the monster's oppressive aura from afar, questioning if that terrifying creature is really just a goblin. The two wounded opponents keep staring each other down in tense silence in the middle of the completely destroyed field. Suddenly, to everyone's shock, the goblin monster starts speaking in human tongue, revealing his name is Ku Chulin. Under his tattered hood, the creature formally introduces himself in a grand manner to the human hunter who fought him on equal ground. Hearing the monster's voice from afar, Yuna panics. Realizing the creature is intelligent and capable of speaking perfect language, Chulin stares at Tenma and firmly promises that he will definitely return in the future to settle this battle debt. The monster slams his weapon hard on the ground, triggering a dark, magical smoke that quickly wraps around him. The makeshift portal explodes into a cloud of dark dust, completely veiling the legendary monster's battered body. Chulin vanishes without a trace, leaving behind only a screen of gray smoke and Tenma standing alone in the quiet clearing. Still hiding behind the trees, Yuna watches the scene from afar, without understanding anything that just went down. Seeing the mysterious hunter drop to his knees, exhausted on the ground, she rushes over frantically to give aid. She kneels beside Tenma, introducing herself as the rescue squad, and anxiously asks where the other members are upon noticing his grave injuries. Seeing that the hunter is about to pass out, she tells him to hang in there and asks who that monster from before was. Tenma's vision slowly fades to black as he focuses on the worried, frightened face of the young hunter, with a faint, ironic smile on his lips. The guy replies in his mind that he is simply the guy who saved her life. He silently asks her never to forget it and collapses unconscious onto the girl's shoulder right after lacking the strength to stay awake. Tenma blacks out completely and falls sideways onto the ground, leaving Yuna frantic and clueless about what to do. Sometime later, the hunter appears rubbing her temples, tiredly wondering how she will report such an absurd incident to the association somewhere else. The bright lights of a hospital ceiling snap on with a soft click. Tenma slowly opens his eyes and wakes up, lying in a clean, comfortable hospital bed, letting out a soft sigh as he comes to. He gets up carefully and pulls back the window curtain to look out at the hospital courtyard, recognizing right away where he ended up. The guy extends his arm to bring up his holographic hunter system screen with a simple tap of his fingers. Looking at the bright blue screen, he realizes with relief that the life or death battle actually happened and was not just a delusion in his head. He is stunned to see he unlocked multiple legendary max-level skills in a single fight, something he never managed to do in his entire past life. Tenma taps the status screen and confirms he indeed gained maxed-out skills for swordsmanship, strength, perception, and several others. He reflects that the special adjustment trait was the sole reason he managed to fight toe-to-toe against a legendary monster like Chulin. Checking the description, he reads that his experience gain was multiplied insanely, though the special effect of the trait is still locked. The guy calmly accepts that the special effect is still locked and dismisses the screen with a light tap of his fingers. He understands that this insane experience multiplier was merely a balance patch granted by the system because he had absolutely zero natural talent. Tenma wonders if the system would have granted this same absurd trait if Hunter Amamiya had been the one chosen to go back in time. However, he concludes that someone strong like Amamiya, who awakened with overwhelming power, would never need a balance fix patch. He lets out a sigh and decides to stop overthinking it, focusing solely on what he needs to do now that he is back in the past. Suddenly, a friendly female voice calls out to him in the hospital room, commenting in surprise that he is finally awake. Yuna steps into the room in a suit and says she heard from the doctors that he was supposed to take at least another full week just to open his eyes. Tenma looks at his hands with a chuckle, thinking that in reality, he does not even have a healing skill to recover that fast. A new system alert pops up on his status screen, revealing that he just gained the natural recovery skill at the maximum level of 10. Tenma realizes he got the healing skill while he was knocked out, but Yuna cuts him off in annoyance, complaining about being ignored by the guy whose life she saved. To play dumb, Tenma coldly asks who she is, driving the young hunter crazy with frustration as she reminds him that they met in the portal. She pulls out her ID card and formally introduces herself as Yuna Shirogane, a C-rank hunter sent by the Hunters Association for the rescue. Tenma pretends to remember, thinking to himself that the terrifying monster Chulin only decided to run from the field right when that woman showed up. He knows that in the original timeline, that investigation team sent by the association was supposed to be brutally slaughtered by the legendary monster. Tenma sets the girl straight, saying that he was actually the one who saved her life, making her sheepishly admit there is some truth to that. Yuna reveals that a hidden survivor from the Night Crow Guild testified in Tenma's favor, confirming just how insanely strong the dual sword monster was. Upon hearing the news, Tenma gives a faint smile of satisfaction and relief, realizing someone else from the guild made it out of that massacre alive. However, the hunter's expression turns serious as she warns that this is precisely the major problem with the whole situation. She explains that the association decided to cover up the case and not recognize that an ordinary F-rank hunter like him was the one responsible for taking down the legendary monster. To Yuna's complete surprise, Tenma turns calmly and replies that he does not care one bit about official recognition from the association. In disbelief, she runs after him and asks if he does not feel frustrated about losing a golden opportunity to become world famous overnight. However, he knows full well that the enemy force's real objective is to break out of the portals and completely conquer the real world. Tenma concludes that Chulin's appearance is tied to the demons and that he cannot let them find out he is the one messing up their invasion plans. He bids a cold farewell, saying he is leaving, but the young hunter shouts for him to wait a second longer. Yuna annoyedly demands that he explain once and for all the real reason he stepped into the Night Crow Guild's dangerous portal. Tenma glances sideways and lies through his teeth, simply replying that he did it all strictly for the cash. He adds that he just intended to snag some valuable mana crystals left behind by the fallen hunters' bodies, opening the door to walk out. Without giving time for any more questions, the hunter quickly leaves the hospital room and shuts the door behind him. Alone in the quiet room, Yuna crosses her arms with a pout, thinking to herself how weird that hunter is. Back in the real world, Tenma takes a chill walk along the busy city sidewalks, watching the people around him. The city is bursting with life and energy, with street shop vendors enthusiastically shouting out hunter gear offers. He walks past students laughing and chatting happily, enjoying the peaceful routine of that period. The guy smirks as he takes in the beauty of that world full of life, years before its total destruction by the demon invasion. He walks back toward his old apartment complex under a gorgeous sunny blue sky. Arriving at the hallway of his floor, Tenma quickly punches the code into the electronic lock to open his apartment door. The guy steps into his old home with a sigh of relief, nostalgically noting that absolutely nothing changed compared to his past life. Exhausted from everything he went through, Tenma flops comfortably onto his gray couch and relaxes his muscles. He lies in silence for a few moments, staring thoughtfully at the ceiling about the next moves he should make, raising his open hand toward the air. He wonders what he needs to do from here on to stop humanity's future extinction. He reflects that, normally, elite association officials would be mobilizing to try to uncover the truth behind the strange incident. But remembering his involvement, he puts his hand over his face and realizes the tragic event was averted, completely shifting the course of things. The hunter pulls up his X-rank trait info screen once again to try and draft an efficient training plan. He understands that the past has already started to shift since he got that special bonus, and that he is the only one with the power to make a difference. Clenching his fists tight, Tenma resolves to grow stronger than any existing hunter to prevent all future disasters. He recalls that he used to read a monthly hunter magazine in his past life, meaning he holds knowledge about almost every major event. However, the guy realizes with concern and nerves that he cannot remember the tiny details of every article he read in the magazine. He recalls how his perception skill drastically changed the way he saw and felt everything around him inside the portal. Tenma sits up abruptly on the couch, realizing his problem will be solved if he can somehow boost his own memory capacity to put his plan into action. He gets his hands on an extremely complex academic book on advanced quantum physics for professionals sitting in a hunter library. He guesses that pushing his brain by reading something insanely tough might net him a mind-related skill. With a serious, focused look, the guy tries his hardest to read and make sense of the first few pages of that scientific book. A short while later, Tenma slumps onto the table out of exhaustion, sighing in frustration over not understanding a single word written. He shuts the physics book in boredom and curses at himself, questioning what he was trying to do and deciding to scrap that silly idea. But suddenly, a holographic system screen flashes before him with a notification detecting high-level intellectual activity. Instantly, the 100,000 times experience bonus triggers, maxing out his new intelligence skill in a matter of seconds. The system confirms intelligence has hit the max cap of level 10, and Tenma lets out a goofy laugh upon realizing his crazy idea actually worked. Hyped up, he taps the glowing blue screen to read the details and effects of his newly unlocked skill. The panel shows an increase in magic proficiency and mental power, but he notices with disappointment that the memory boost was not as huge as expected. Tenma closes his eyes for a moment, thinking it might be possible to retrieve his entire past if he uses the intelligence and perception skills together. He concentrates deeply at the library table, letting his mental energies work in sync to retrieve his lost memories. The system alerts that he successfully accessed his subconscious realm by simultaneously triggering max-level perception and intelligence, breathing calmly and focused. The hunter sets a firm command for himself, ordering his mind to recall absolutely everything. Multiple memories of his past life from the destroyed timeline begin flashing before his eyes like a crystal-clear film reel. The memory search skill unlocks and hits max level instantly, allowing him to recall every memory buried in his mind with total perfection. Tenma opens his eyes in the library with all his past memories fully restored and neatly organized in his head. With a satisfied smirk on his face, the young hunter whispers to himself that everything is finally sorted out now. He thinks excitedly that he managed to recall exactly what he wanted, and the scene cuts to the storefront of a modern coffee shop named Cafe Bomchon. Tenma draws his security pattern on his phone screen to unlock the device at precisely 2:47 in the afternoon. He lets out a relieved sigh for finally managing to retrieve his passcode so he can check his bank account balance. Upon opening the app, he sees he only has 2,782 yen, and laments that being broke is the only thing that did not change with the regression. The server with long hair tied back friendly approaches and hands over the order on a tray, politely letting him know his coffee is ready. It shows a close-up of Tenma bringing the straw to his lips to take a long, tasty gulp of his iced coffee packed with ice cubes. Sitting on the cafe terrace overlooking the bustling big city, he lets out a satisfied sigh, feeling like he is finally living for real. Watching the people walking on the street below, he plans to find the disguised demons and eliminate them before they grow stronger. The young guy decides his first big target in the city should be the terrible growth demon, the very first threat that revealed itself to humanity in the past. Suddenly, his phone on the table starts vibrating wildly, displaying an incoming call from a man named Hiroki Gondo Tenma. Picks up the phone and looks at the display with confusion, curiously wondering who that person calling him could be. When he answers with a simple hello, a deep voice yells from the other end, calling him a fill-in substitute and demanding his immediate presence to harvest mana stones. The man orders him to head to the city of Saikyo Shichioji right away, prompting Tenma to quickly trigger his level 10 memory search. He remembers the temp agency boss perfectly, and how in the past he used to grind odd jobs for understaffed guides in simple F-rank portals. The boss keeps screaming for him to hurry up and stop slacking, but Tenma calmly replies that he simply will not be able to make it. With a cold gaze, he explains over the phone that the actual reason for his absence is the simple fact that he lacks enough cash to pay for the taxi ride. Without giving the man time to reply or complain, Tenma indifferently hangs up the call and goes back to casually sipping his iced coffee. Sometime later, a yellow taxi speeds down the busy city avenues heading toward the portal address inside the car. Tenma laughs, thinking about how the boss hung up on him but ended up sending a taxi anyway, and pulls up his status screen. He looks with deep satisfaction at his new list of skills maxed out at level 10, celebrating in his mind seeing everything is set up right. The yellow taxi pulls up smoothly at the curb of a tree-lined park, right in front of the active portal entrance. A group of hunters in green uniforms waits in front of the blue light portal, and Tenma calmly walks across the wooden bridge toward them. He gives a confident smile, looking up at the sky, thinking he will now have prime opportunities to test and practice his newly maxed skills. The blue portal glows intensely in the middle of the park, before the gathered hunter team as Tenma approaches them. Walking head held high as he approaches, a hunter with spiky green hair turns around angrily and sharply complains that the newbie is way late. It is D-rank hunter Kuki Kazama, leader of the Kusei Guild, who crosses his arms and angrily asks if Tenma is going to take responsibility for the delay. Tenma stares at him with a cold, piercing glare, causing the guild leader to flinch at his intimidating presence and stutter, asking if he wants to fight. The system pings and announces that he gained the intimidation skill at level 3 after threatening his opponent with a glare. Reading the description, he finds out intimidation drops enemy stats and thinks happily that the skill is an awesome unexpected bonus. Completely ignoring the leader's complaints and hostility, Tenma reaches out his hand and calmly asks if they could lend him some useful gear. Feeling intimidated and nervous, Kuki quickly agrees and orders his assistant to hand over any spare equipment to the guy right away. The leader steps into the blue light portal, calling the group to move out, while the other hunters whisper that their boss seems pretty stressed today. Already inside the dark dungeon, a goblin gets brutally slashed and defeated, with blood splattering all over the damp stone walls. The lead hunter wipes sweat from his face and sighs in relief as the hunter group walks through the cave with Tenma, bringing up the rear carrying a large backpack. The assistant in a black bandana turns around impatiently and loudly orders them to hurry up and finish clearing out the whole area. The porter with the large backpack nervously answers, "Yes, sir," and starts rushing deeper into the cave, followed by Tenma walking calmly behind. It shows one of the helper's hands firmly gripping the hilt of a sharp knife and plunging it straight into the chest of the fallen goblin monster. The young porter struggles to extract the mana stone from the dead goblin, using his utility knife with both hands. Seeing the guy tired and struggling to cut through the monster's hide, Tenma steps up from behind and calmly asks if he has a spare dagger. The young hunter quickly agrees and hands over a spare dagger in its protective black sheath directly into Tenma's hands. Tenma draws the blade and thrusts it with surgical precision straight into the dead green monster's chest in one go, making blood spurt effortlessly. The young porter looks back completely jaw-dropped and shocked, seeing the extraordinary speed and accuracy of Tenma's cut. The system alerts that he successfully extracted the loot and announces the acquisition of the new butchery skill at level 1. Due to the absurd 100,000 times experience multiplier, the butchery skill starts leveling up instantly on his screen. The system confirms the skill reached level 10, and Tenma shows off several clean, perfectly extracted mana stones in his hands. The young porter watches that perfection in awe, while Tenma calmly stands up, wiping sweat off his face with a cloth napkin. With a relaxed smile, the young hunter packs away his stuff and tells the kid it is time for them to keep moving. The group advances easily through the cave, leaving behind a trail of several goblin monsters and wolves defeated with extreme ease. The Kausei Guild hunters happily talk about how smooth and fast today's portal clearing progress is going. The porter suggests keeping the push going, but the bandana hunter turns around annoyed and starts complaining that he should just focus on gathering stones. However, the warrior is rendered completely speechless upon seeing that Tenma and the kid have already neatly stacked a huge pile of wolf corpses. A blue system alert confirms that the demon wolf pelts were preserved in flawless condition for harvesting. Another notification reveals that the wolf teeth obtained are top-tier quality, which will net the team members some solid cash. Totally blown away by Tenma's rapid work, the warrior stammers a bit and agrees that the best move is to keep advancing through the dungeon. The young porter walks happily beside the guy, thinking the progress is fast because usually he is the one slowing the group down during harvesting. The kid turns around in admiration and curiously asks what he should do to become as fast and precise at extraction as he is. Suddenly, a lone goblin armed with a sharp scimitar shows up in the middle of the dark cave's stone corridor, blocking the team's path. The green monster with red eyes glowing with pure hatred snarls menacingly while gripping the hilt of his blade tight. Tenma notices one escaped the last fight, and the kid frantically warns that, based on the shoulder tattoo, that must be the dangerous squad leader. Without showing a hint of worry, Tenma calmly rests his hand on the hilt of his giant sword, getting ready to draw it with style. He gives a smirk, thinking this battle is the exact kind of perfect chance he was waiting for to train his techniques. Seeing the monster prepare to charge, the young porter screams frantically, telling his companion to be super careful. He keeps yelling in panic that Tsukishiro is just an F rank unable to beat a goblin alone, and that he is the real weak link of the whole hunter group. The fearsome goblin leader lets out a mocking growl of contempt upon seeing the two human hunters standing before him. The guy monster makes a provocative gesture with his free hand, calling Tenma out for combat with ultimate confidence. Suddenly, the heavy sound of multiple footsteps marching and dragging across the damp ground echoes loudly through the dark cave corridor. A horde of 4 more goblins armed with spears and sharp axes pops up from behind the leader, completely surrounding the two hunters. The young guy drops to his knees, crying in despair, yelling that an F rank against 5 monsters means the end of their lives, making Tenma sigh in boredom. The goblin leader lets out a deafening roar of fury and leaps at high speed toward Tenma with blade in hand. At that very instant, Tenma's intimidation skill triggers automatically through the hunter system. A terrifying, oppressive aura of black energy violently radiates from the guy's body, swallowing and freezing the whole atmosphere around them. Under the crushing effect of sheer terror, the goblin leader's dagger slips from his hand, and he drops paralyzed to the floor, while intimidation ranks up to level 4. Another monster in the horde drops his heavy iron axe and falls backward onto the dirt, while the system signals that the skill reached level 5. The remaining goblins drop their weapons and collapse onto the cave floor one by one, completely frozen in pure terror under Tenma's intimidating aura. All 5 monsters end up down and totally unable to fight on the damp dirt due to the pressure exerted by the young hunter's aura. The goblin leader breaks into a cold sweat of pure terror and growls frantically, unable to grasp the absurd strength of that F-rank human. With a calm smile of pure satisfaction, Tenma celebrates to himself how powerful and useful this intimidation skill actually turned out to be. Suddenly, he hears a faint collapse sound right behind him and turns around, intrigued to see what just happened. He realizes the young porter passed out from sheer fear, his soul practically floating out of his mouth because of how terrifying his combat aura was, and laughs at the situation. The guy celebrates in his head that, since the kid passed out, he no longer needs to worry about hiding his real combat skills. With enhanced reflexes and speed, Tenma dashes at top speed toward the goblin leader under the active effect of his max agility. He lands multiple precise, circular slashes in the air, slicing up the monsters without giving them any chance to react. The hunter decides to take advantage of the quiet moment to run a fun little practical test with his swordsmanship skills. He executes a devastating sequence of fast strikes that generate intense flashes of bright light throughout the dark cave corridor, severely wounded and lacking the strength to fight back. The goblin leader drops to his knees, holding his scimitar with difficulty as he bleeds. Tenma looks down at his bloodied sword and realizes that, unlike before, acquiring advanced hunter skills still requires actual effort on his part. He understands that his special trait makes gaining basic skills much easier, but that does not change the fact that he originally lacked talent. The guy clicks his tongue in sheer frustration with himself while thinking about his lack of talent inherited from his old reality. In one swift horizontal cut, he mercilessly beheads the goblin leader, sending the creature's head rolling across the cave floor. The monster's body drops lifelessly onto the damp dirt, and Tenma wipes the blood off his sword blade with absolute composure and precision. A blue notification floats before his eyes, confirming that the effect of his special adjustment trait activated successfully after the victory. The system screen announces that the experience gained was multiplied by 100,000, and dozens of level-up messages start blowing up around Tenma. Tenma sees a bright alert on the screen saying he finally hit level 20, leaving him pretty confused by that. He remembers he did not even beat Ku Chulin, so he should not have gained that much experience to jump straight up and hit a level cap. The system explains that with the capped level, he will not level up anymore until he completes the awakening quest, earning points instead of experience. These awakening quests pop up every 20 levels, and until he ranks up, the hunter's level stays locked, accumulating only points. These points earned instead of experience can be spent freely to purchase special items directly from the system shop. Suddenly, the floating red screen emits a small electric shock that startles Tenma, making him wince in pain. He decides to pick his purchases later. Wondering when his awakening quest will finally show up, Tenma nudges the young porter stretched out on the floor and lets him know it is time to wake up to start harvesting the monster loot. The kid slowly starts recovering from the faint, still pretty dizzy and groaning without really understanding what went down. Looking to the side, the porter gets a massive fright seeing all the goblins and their captain completely defeated on the ground. He is in utter disbelief seeing that even the powerful goblin captain was taken out along with the rest of the gang. The kid confusedly asks what happened there, and Tenma lies that someone else passed through and beat the monsters, telling him to start harvesting, wasting no time. The two kneel beside the monster bodies to begin the extraction work in the dark cave. While the young porter works hard cutting into one of the goblins, Tenma watches him out of the corner of his eye in total calm. The hunter decides to open up his floating status screen again to take a detailed look at how his stats turned out. The blue window shows that level 20 is locked and lists all his various basic skills that have already hit level 10. He notices the level cap info when suddenly an unexpected notification starts flashing on the blue status screen. He thinks that if he wants to keep training while hunting demons, he cannot afford to just sit around waiting for the quest. Right then, a red system screen alerts that he finally hit the max level cap for F rank, which is 20. The system drops a new warning informing that the difficulty of his awakening quest will be increased, while also revealing a reward. Tenma looks at the panel surprised, wondering what this announced difficulty spike actually means. Suddenly, the hunter's eyes widen as he reads the new information that just popped up right in front of him. He swallows hard and worries that this situation with the quest system might end up turning out really bad for him. He keeps analyzing the details on the screen attentively, barely able to believe what he is reading there. The hunter realizes the situation is actually total madness because of how unbelievable it seems to be. Meanwhile, the porter gathers a few orange mana stones from the ground and looks curiously at Tenma's strange reaction. Tenma flashes a sinister smile in front of the screen, making the poor kid worry that the hunter might have some weird fetish. The screen shows that the evolution of his trait will bring insane perks, like a massive experience multiplier and limit breaking. He turns thoughtful about this trait evolution, realizing that all of this is way different from a standard awakening quest. The panel reveals that rewards for clearing the quest include raising the max level cap for all skills and a shop upgrade. Tenma smiles confidently as he realizes he will receive a colossal power boost as soon as he manages to hit D rank. The screen displays the objective to subdue a demon, and he recalls that, based on his past, the monster should appear in 3 days inside a portal. That enemy is the terrifying growth demon, a creature that in the future would become a legion commander and slaughter humanity. Suddenly, the hunter notices a small blue window floating right next to the quest panel and gets intrigued. Clueless as to what it is, the young porter calls out, asking if he is not leaving, and Tenma waves back, confirming he is heading out with him. The system announces that thanks to talentless adjustment, he received support items and just gained a special rare weapon box. Surprised by the reward, the young hunter taps the floating screen to claim the mysterious package with the rare grade gear. Instantly, an extremely bright flash radiates from Tenma's hands, lighting up the entire dark cave corridor. The intense glow slowly dims while he grips the hilt of an impressive, glowing bluish magic sword. The notification confirms he just unlocked a special rare-grade sword named Soul Eater, leaving the guy stunned. A massive, glowing blue and purple portal floats in the middle of a forest under the sunset light, while some hunters gather nearby. The porter lets the guildmaster know they are stepping out, and Koki Kazama waves back, congratulating the squad on a job well done. The two young guys walk happily, chatting energetically as they finally leave the hunting area behind. Tenma watches the kid walk away and fondly thinks that little Kyoya must be around 6 years old right now. The hunter pulls out his phone to check his account balance and sees a 50,000 yen deposit sent straight from Koki Kazama. He comments surprised that the daily pay was supposed to come from the agency and that the original agreed amount was only 35,000 yen. Koki explains he sent extra cash straight to the agency as a thank you since everything went super smooth thanks to Tenma's help. The hunter duo says a cheerful goodbye and heads off, leaving Tenma alone as the sun starts dipping on the horizon. Tenma reflects that he used to think that world was horrible, but realizes that as soon as your strength goes up a bit, people start treating you with respect. Suddenly, his stomach lets out a loud rumble, and he realizes that with all the excitement, he completely forgot about his hunger. With the money he received, Tenma thinks about getting something tasty to eat, but is cut off when his phone starts vibrating in his hand. He sees that only 4,500 yen was deposited into his account by Hiroki Gondo, who even deducted the taxi ride. Tenma gets completely furious and outraged over receiving such a pitiful amount, complaining in anger about the guy who made the deduction. A bit later, he decides to drop by a big supermarket called a mart, which is brightly lit in the middle of the night in the city. Inside the store, the young hunter holds a fresh green broccoli head with both hands, taking a deep breath to catch the natural scent. He smiles happily at the smell, remembering that before the end of the world, they could not even dream of seeing fresh veggies like that anywhere. While enjoying that peaceful moment, he is taken aback when he senses someone approaching from behind. Yuna Shiragane, the glasses-wearing hunter from the Hunters Association, recognizes him and asks if he really is. Tsukishiro Tenma asks if the association sent her to tail him, but she says she is just grocery shopping and questions what he is doing smelling broccoli like that. He explains he was just catching the freshness of the veggie, leaving Yuna with a sweat drop and the certainty that she needs to keep an eye on him. Staring at her face closely, the guy starts finding the hunter's features weirdly familiar. To clear his doubts, Tenma instantly triggers his level 10 memory search skill to dig through his past. A clear image pops into his mind showing Yuna beside a woman who looks a lot like her, but has an imposing presence. He then asks her directly if she happens to have an older sister, and if that sister's name is Yuki Shiragane. Yuna gets completely freaked out by the question and wants to know how he knows her sister, but he thinks to himself that it would be impossible not to know Yuki Shiragane was known in the original timeline as the Infinite Archer, one of the legendary warriors of the so-called 11 Finals. She was humanity's hope under the moniker Goblin Slayer, driven by the death of her sister who ended up saved by Tenma. While Yuna demands to know how he knows her, Tenma realizes that because he saved the girl in the incident, she did not become that cold warrior. He dodges the topic by simply saying her sister is really pretty, leaving the girl confused, unable to follow the direction of the chat. When Tenma says the two look a lot alike, Yuna turns bright red and stammers. Not knowing how to react to the sudden compliment, he recalls that she has a teleportation skill and thinks she could be a huge help in the fight against the growth demon. The young guy holds out his phone and asks for her number, leaving the girl in complete shock, asking why he is asking for her contact out of nowhere. She turns sideways shyly and whispers that it is not like she cares, but there should be a proper order for these things. Tenma completely ruins the romantic mood by revealing he wants her number to collect the debt for saving her life, leaving her super annoyed. Totally frustrated by the buzzkill, the girl snatches the phone right out of Tenma's hand with total force and impatience. She punches in her digits with fury in her eyes and a fiery aura around her, scaring the guy who asks her to chill out a bit. After shoving the device back with total coldness, she leaves Tenma holding the phone while she tries to catch her breath from the anger. Yuna stomps off, complaining that he was just messing with her, while the young hunter watches her walk away. The next day, Tenma walks through the busy city holding his iron sword, looking for the exact spot he needs to go. He thinks about the sword he scored yesterday, which boasts 30 attack power and is roughly 3 times stronger than his previous weapon. The panel reveals that Soul Eater is super rare grade and that absorbing souls with it can unlock various special functions. However, he knows just a good weapon is not enough against the growth demon and that he needs to learn a superior swordsmanship technique. The guy reasons that to learn how to cook, one should find a chef, so to learn sword skills he needs the best. He stops right in front of the large dojo building of the Kirishima Kendo family, set on finding the master swordsman of that place. The hunter enters the building and knocks gently on the main door of the training dojo, politely asking for permission to enter. since nobody answers his call. He pushes the door open slowly and notices it was already completely unlocked and open. Tenma steps into the quiet space knowing he needs to snag a primary destructive attack skill to go up against the demons. He walks across the dojo's wooden floor, knowing the legendary swordsman there could slice through the heavens with a single strike. He catches sight of a figure at the back of the hall and remembers that Hunter performed insane miracles and became a symbol of hope. That formidable man was none other than the future Sword Saint, a legendary hero named Taiyo Kirishima. With blue hair falling over his face, the legendary swordsman holds a pen and lazily complains about having someone there so early. The man walks calmly toward the young hunter, who stands waiting respectfully with his sword in hand. Tenma's heart starts beating faster as that imposing figure he respects so much for his legendary strength approaches. However, the hunter looks down at the floor and gets completely baffled seeing hundreds of autograph papers scattered all over the place. The master swordsman lets out a long, lazy yawn, showing he just woke up and is running on zero energy. Actively acting casual, he bluntly asks if Tenma is just another fan of his, leaving the young hunter completely confused. The blue-haired swordsman deftly spins the pen in his fingers and cracks a smile, asking where the guy wants his autograph. In Tenma's future memories, the sight of Taiyo raising his great sword at sunset was wrapped in unmatched grandeur. The devastating slash of that legendary blade was able to tear through sky clouds and split an entire mountain in half at once. Though his legendary strength was flawless and indisputable, the real man's personality right in front of him was way different from the memories. Taiyo bursts into loud, super energetic laughter in a pretty exaggerated way, asking if the young guy really wants an autograph from him. He says it is obvious everyone wants one since he is the one who will save the world, while Tenma just quietly sips water in silence. He watches the man and, disappointed, realizes the Sword Saint's personality is even worse and sillier than the rumors said. Tenma remembers that in the future, the hero ended up dying mysteriously, likely as a result of some cruel demon plot snapping back to reality. Taiyo asks with a big grin if the young hunter wants him to sign the back of his shirt. Tenma decides to make his request directly and says he would really love to get guidance and swordsmanship lessons from the master. Taiyo grabs Tenma's shoulders excitedly upon learning he wants to be his disciple, making the young guy almost regret it and want to leave shortly after. Tenma appears sitting on a comfortable couch in the reception room, surrounded by hundreds of scattered autograph sheets. The master bashfully confesses he spent the entire past month thinking only about autographs and ended up getting a bit obsessed with it. He then questions how Tenma tracked him down, since he just registered as a hunter and never completed any official combat quest. The swordsman leans forward suddenly with a serious, sharp look, making the atmosphere pretty tense for a few moments. He cracks another goofy smile and says the young guy must have seen his moves during the measurement exam and fallen in love with his skills. Taiyo starts laughing really loudly again, while Tenma just gives a forced smile trying to play it off. Tenma nods to avoid trouble and asks to learn a skill, prompting the proud master to ask which technique he desires. The guy recalls a past chat he had with the drunk hero at a bar, where major revelations were dropped. In the memory, the drunk swordsman mentioned that an extremely simple technique serves as the foundation of his entire massive power. With a drunken hiccup, the master pointed a finger and asked, surprised, if the young guy really did not know that famous move. Then, the man deadpans, revealing that the name of that powerful basic technique was simply the straight line slash back in the present. Taiyo gets pretty surprised by the request and wants to make sure if that simple skill is really what he wants. The master gets up and pulls one of the wooden training swords organized on the rack mounted on the dojo wall. He walks over to the young hunter and holds out the wooden gear, casually telling him to try gripping the weapon. Tenma stares at the sword hilt and starts moving his hand closer with total calm and focus to grab it before he even brushes the weapon. Taiyo yanks it back and coldly declares that the kid has absolutely zero talent. Tenma complains that he did not even get to touch the object, but the experienced master warns he can tell from a mile away and tells him to quit swordsmanship. Pride hurt. The young hunter fires back with pure resolve, saying nobody can know for sure without him trying first. The blue-haired swordsman lets out a long sigh of disappointment at all that stubbornness shown by the kid. He decides to give in to Tenma's persistence and hands over the wooden training sword straight into his hands once and for all. The second he grips the hilt, the system alerts that active level 10 swordsmanship triggered successfully in Tenma's body. Taiyo is stunned by the sudden shift. While the young guy confidently asks if he still thinks he lacks capability, the master notes that the guy's posture, breathing, and gaze completely shifted inexplicably the moment he touched the weapon. Swallowing hard at what he just witnessed, the experienced swordsman seriously tells the kid to just follow him. The two step out of the building and head to an outdoor back area where a few thick wooden logs are driven into the damp grass. The master steps up with the gear in hand and calmly lets him know he will first do a practical demo of the move. He comments that his skill is still incomplete at level 9, but tells the kid to pay close attention as a special fan gift. With perfectly synced, fluid moves, the experienced swordsman raises the wooden sword above his head under the blue sky. He executes a downward vertical strike at insane speed, generating a heavy gust of glowing wind around his body. The impact force is so precise that the heavy wooden log is sliced clean in half, the pieces crashing hard to the ground. After the impressive demo, the master turns around with a calm smile and holds out the wooden practice weapon for the young guy to attempt. Tenma firmly grips the gear hilt with both hands and raises it over his head, locking his total focus on the next log. The guy swings with force, but the sword just thuds flat against the wood and slips off without making a cut, leaving him pretty frustrated. Watching with crossed arms, the master thinks he truly has zero talent for failing to land a basic line/refusing to give up. The young hunter begins delivering multiple repeated noisy strikes against the hard surface of the log Taiyo face palms in disappointment and mutters that at that slow learning pace, the kid would take 10 years to get it right. Tenma asks if there is no other way to explain the move, while the master thinks he would have kicked the kid out already if he were not a fan. He decides to drop another vague tip and says that when raising the blade, the hunter must mentally map a direct connection to the highest point in the sky. He points his finger, indicating that when bringing the blade down, one must connect sky and earth in a perfectly straight, precise path. Tenma listens with intense focus to the figurative advice, wipes some sweat off his forehead, and nods that he finally gets the picture. Channeling all his remaining energy, the guy steps forward and pulls off a new set of firm, determined top-to-bottom strikes. Seeing it still did not work, Taiyo turns around saying it is useless to push it and suggests calling it wraps on today's training. However, suddenly the master freezes, surprised upon hearing an unexpected sound coming from behind, and whips around with a shocked glare. Out of nowhere, Tenma pulls off another lightning-fast downward vertical strike, firing a blue flash of pure energy through the forest air. Taiyo watches from afar in total shock, mentally asking himself what kind of unbelievable scene he is witnessing. The master notices, pretty terrified, that the path and precision of the guy's strike are getting sharper and faster by the second. With sweat dripping down his face, the blue-haired swordsman mutters to himself that all of this should be completely impossible. Tenma's wooden sword comes down mercilessly, slicing deep and straight into the hard surface of the log with an insanely clean and precise slash. The heavy wooden log splits perfectly into two halves that drop to the dirt. The young hunter finishes the follow-through motion and stands still in front of the sliced log pieces, taking a slow, calm, deep breath. Tenma asks if that was the right feel for the move, and Taiyo starts clapping surprised, taking back what he said about the lack of talent trying to keep his master composure. He says the true straight-line slash requires a far higher level of precision. He points to 4 lined-up logs and warns that the real skill test requires cutting through all of them at once in a row. Tenma walks over resolved to try, while the master thinks that must be impossible even with talent and just tells him to attempt the test. However, the swordsman's eyes widen again upon realizing the young guy's stance completely switched to absolute focus. Tenma calmly steps up right in front of the line of 4 big wooden logs planted in the training ground dirt. He raises the wooden practice sword pointing straight to the sky, gathering a huge amount of glowing energy on the blade. Seeing the massive energy gathered and the kid's flawless stance, Taiyo swallows hard and worries that this cannot be real. With a fast, devastating swing, Tenma drops the downward vertical slash, releasing a colossal wave of blue magic energy. All 4 logs get sliced in half at once, and the system alerts that he unlocked the skill at level 10 thanks to the multiplier. The strike was so destructive that it carved a deep, long trench in the damp dirt, stretching many meters ahead of both hunters. Completely terrified by the scale of that absurd power, the experienced master loses his footing and falls flat on his butt on the grass. Taiyo is utterly speechless, wondering how that is possible, while Tenma flashes a subtle, super satisfied smile. Later, under a beautiful orange city sunset, the scene shifts to show a massive complex of modern residential buildings. With a blue glow of magic energy, Yuna Shiragane teleports straight inside her apartment holding grocery bags. She cheerfully announces she is home, but her older sister scolds her right away for using teleportation so carelessly. Yuki Shiragane, the SSS rank hunter from the Silverwing Guild, crosses her arms and says she might need that power in actual emergencies. Yuna tries to play it off while taking the scolding, but her sister instantly notices the girl's face is completely red and flushed. Yuna tries to hide it by adjusting her glasses, but Yuki insists she is acting super weird and wants to know if something went down outside. The young girl places her glasses gently on the living room table and says it was nothing special, trying to redirect Yuki's curiosity. With bright red cheeks, Yuna builds up courage and timidly asks if her older sister happens to know a hunter named Tenma. She pushes the same question with intense curiosity in her eyes, eagerly waiting for the answer her older sister will give. After thinking for a few moments with her hand on her chin, Yuki bluntly answers that she has never heard that name anywhere. Yuna smirks in relief at the answer, leaving her sister suspicious and asking if the girl accidentally ate something spoiled. Later, in the quiet of her cozy bedroom, Yuna appears lying on her bed staring intently at her phone screen. She wonders thoughtfully if the guy dropped her sister's name on purpose, just as a silly excuse to snag her contact. Looking at the saved contact on her phone, she smiles flushed, thinking that despite being super weird, the young hunter is actually pretty handsome. Suddenly, Yuki swings the bedroom door open, asking if she met someone interesting, causing the poor girl to let out a scared scream. Embarrassed, Yuna quickly hides under the covers, while her older sister sits on the edge of the bed, finding the reaction hilarious. Yuki smiles warmly and pushes again for details, wanting to figure out once and for all who the mystery guy is. Peeking out from behind the pillow, the girl shyly reveals that it is the guy who heroically helped her out the other day. She hugs the pillow tight, trying to downplay it, blushing as she explains he just asked for her phone number. Yuki gently pats her younger sister's head and says that if things work out between them, she definitely wants to meet him too. Yuki mentions that the guild is doing a massive raid tomorrow and will be out for a few days, commenting that the portals are acting weird. She asks the hunter not to get mixed up in anything dangerous at the association, and Yuna smiles, saying her sister is way too overprotective. The SSS rank hunter says goodbye and casually exits the room, leaving her younger sister alone with her thoughts, once again. Alone again, Yuna sits back up on the bed and picks up her phone with a small, bashful smile to check Tenma's contact. She stares at Tenma Tsukishiro's name saved on the display, feeling her heart beating super fast and wild. Back at the Kendo Dojo training field, Tenma looks at the huge trench of destruction he carved into the grass with his strike. The system confirms he learned the special swordsmanship technique straight line slash and that it already hit max level due to evolution. He thinks relieved that it was tough getting the hang of it, but the colossal multiplier made it easy to gain fast experience to max it out. The young guy turns around, thanking respectfully for all the help received, but the master swordsman drops his head and begs to see it again. To Tenma's complete shock, the legendary sword saint drops to his knees, begging on the floor for the kid to show the slash just one more time. Taiyo desperately clings to Tenma's leg with both hands, almost crying as he begs him to land the cut just once more. He cries and confesses that even he could not hit level 10 on that technique, wanting to know how the guy did it in just a few tries. Tenma stands shocked, wondering if he really managed to surpass the legendary sword saint in his own signature/skill. The system details that the skill hit level 10 and that, as a max bonus effect, it can now cut through even intangible objects. He remembers there is only one day left before the demon appears and decides he must use the remaining time to learn as many techniques as possible. Seeing the master swordsman's desperation, the young hunter accepts the request and says with a calm smile that he will demonstrate the move again. Taiyo gets super happy, and Tenma proposes a deal, asking if in exchange for the demo, the master could show him some of his other techniques. The guy holds out his hand in a friendly way toward the kneeling man, and officially introduces himself by his name, Tenma Tsukishiro. Eyes filled with tears of pure emotion and awe, the sword saint looks up at the young guy with immense, renewed respect. On a sudden surge, Taiyo leaps forward and wraps Tenma in a super tight bear hug, shouting that he is now his new master. He excitedly declares that from that exact moment on, he will start calling him his swordsmanship master. Taiyo promises to teach all his skills, while Tenma sports a bored face and desperately begs the man to let go of him. Right then, the blue-haired swordsman begins demonstrating a sequence of insanely fast, glowing aerial attacks under the clear sky. He executes the 121st form of the Kirishima style, a devastating flame-filled strike known as the explosive Asura slash. The impact of the attack triggers a massive fire explosion in the air, lighting up the whole training area with giant destructive force. The Sword Saint finishes the demo landing gracefully and nimbly on the grass, firmly gripping the hilt of his sword. He sheathes the blade into its wooden scabbard and respectfully asks if his new master managed to grasp the basic moves. Well, Tenma is completely drained and frustrated, thinking he cannot even visually keep up with the absurd speed of that attack. He collapses exhausted onto the grass, realizing that aside from the first slash, the swordsman's other techniques are way too complex to copy or process. The young hunter sighs, remembering that even with the cheat adjustment system, his total lack of natural talent is still a hard reality. Suddenly, a greenish glow wraps around Tenma's body, and the passive natural recovery skill triggers to restore his energy. He stands up and suggests wrapping up for today, taking Taiyo by surprise, but Tenma lets him know he has other urgent business to handle in the city. With a confident smile, the guy tells the master swordsman he looks forward to seeing his straight-line slash finally perfected in the future. Taiyo agrees and confesses he never actually wanted to be a real hunter, but after meeting the master, he changed his mind and wants to walk this path. The swordsman excitedly shouts with a fiery aura that he will become a great hunter, while Tenma just wishes him good luck from afar. The scene cuts to the exterior of a plain-looking commercial building under pink-toned sunset skies late that sunny afternoon. At the evaluation desk, the appraiser praises the top-notch quality of the wolf pelt and fangs brought by the guy, calling it pretty rare. The man asks if Tenma learned a dismantling technique, and the young hunter calmly replies that his life depends on it. The expert explains that high-grade materials like those grant awesome bonus effects when crafting new gear and weapons. The appraiser says goodbye, friendly asking him to bring more materials whenever he can and promising to pay top cash for them. Tenma looks down at his new set of basic normal rank leather armor and sarcastically thinks about the man's comment on getting a good payout. He dismisses the blue screen and reflects that even as basic starter gear, having some protection makes a colossal difference in battle. The guy walks calmly down the tiled street and decides to grab his phone to make one last high-importance call before the fight. Elsewhere, Yuna's phone starts ringing and vibrating persistently on the table, showing Tenma Tsukishiro's name on the display. A female hand quickly pops into the frame and snatches up the phone with total agility to answer the call before it drops. Yuna answers surprised, while wearing a beauty face mask on the couch at home, while Tenma casually greets her from the other end of the line. The hunter says he needs to discuss something important and asks if she has a minute, leaving the girl curious and pretty anxious over the call. She plays hard to get to make him wait a bit, acting cute with a silly smile while several hearts float around her head. But Tenma instantly kills the romantic vibe by coldly revealing the topic is about an irregular, dangerous portal appearing. Hearing that, the girl goes totally speechless from the shock of the news, her beauty face mask cracking and falling to the floor. She jumps up, holding her towel tight, and screams frantically into the phone for him to repeat what he just said about the portal. The blue screen details the quest to defeat the demon, to break F-rank limits, and finally unlock the causality reversal shop. In his apartment at night, Tenma rests his glowing bluish sword on his shoulders out on the balcony, determined that he is ready for battle. He gazes at the dark horizon under the night sky, mentally gearing up to kick off the dangerous demon extermination quest for real. The next day, Tenma meets up with Yuna by a park edge and apologizes for being late, but the hunter casually says it is all good walking toward the portal. Yuna asks if his info is reliable, and the guy confidently answers that she will see for herself once they arrive. She explains they are heading into a D-rank portal today, and that they will accompany hunters from another guild who had already requested the raid. Suddenly, Yuna stops walking, turns to him with a serious face and warns there is one more piece of important info he needs to know. But she gets flustered out of nowhere, lets out an impatient sigh, and stomps off, telling the guy to just follow her without asking questions. Tenma hurries to keep up with her, while the hunter squad watches them from afar at the forest entrance near the portal. The D-rank hunters from the Roman Guild, Mai Yumasaki and Taiga Saijima, comment pleased that the association duo made it just in time to enter. Yuna formally introduces herself as an association member, and Mai greets her friendly. While Tenma rushes over to join them, Mai asks who the guy next to Yuna is, and she explains he will serve as backup support in case anything unusual happens inside the mystery D-rank portal. The guildmaster introduces himself as Taiga Sajima and sharply tells them to do what they need to do fast and leave as soon as the job is done. He throws a pretty intimidating glare out of the corner of his eye and makes it crystal clear that all monsters there are his prey, telling them not to butt in. Yuna calmly agrees, while Tenma silently thinks that the guildmaster did not even acknowledge his presence or consider him a hunter. The guy observes the whole hunter squad and recalls that in the original timeline, all those people were supposed to die tragically at the hands of the demon. Noticing the kid staring at him, Taiga cold glares back and asks if he has an issue or something he wants to say to him. Tenma gets a slight jump from the guildmaster's attitude and quickly brushes it off, saying he has nothing to say. The gray-haired swordsman tells him to shut up and just follow them, leading the team toward the massive, active portal. Yuna whispers annoyed to Tenma, saying that is exactly why she hates guilds, since they always view the association as the enemy. The guild members cross the purple energy swirl of the portal first, followed closely and calmly by Tenma and Yuna. Before stepping in, the girl grabs the guy by the shoulder and lets him know she first needs to gauge the magic energy levels coming off the portal. She extends her right hand toward the portal and begins channeling her power to take a full reading of the rift's magical intensity. The hunter carefully checks the magic data received through her energy flow sensory reading and confirms the results. She turns to him questioningly and says there is no visible anomaly in the energy, asking if he is sure about his data. With a super mysterious, confident smirk on his face, the young hunter simply replies that she will find out the truth very soon. Yuna thinks he is a really interesting guy and decides to trust him, even at the risk of being played by him. Once inside the portal, they run into a gorgeous night setting, illuminated by a stunning full moon and glowing waters. Yuna gets amazed by the beauty of the mystical landscape. While Tenma walks alongside her, completely sharp and locked onto the surroundings, he grips the hilt of his sword super tight, knowing full well the powerful boss monster must be lurking somewhere in the forest. The guy keeps his sharp combat gaze, knowing the terrifying growth demon is lying in wait in some dark spot of those woods. The hunter team keeps up their quiet march along a winding trail running alongside the large glowing pink lake. Noticing the duo lagging behind, the guildmaster sharply turns around and yells at them not to stray too far from the main group. Taiga throws a displeased look and complains, saying it would be a massive headache for them if anything bad happened to the two of them. Yuna sarcastically replies, and annoyed thinks that D-rank master suffers from a superiority complex, trying to order her around when she is C-rank. The other guild hunters start laughing mockingly at the situation. While Taiga keeps a super arrogant smirk on his face, Tenma watches him and reflects that hunters who rank up fast usually hold the false delusion that they will become the strongest in the world one day. The guy thinks that jumping from F rank to D rank, or even climbing to C rank, makes a lot of hunters turn insanely arrogant. They think they can rank up endlessly in life, but the harsh truth is that only actual freaks of nature manage to reach S rank. Suddenly, the young hunter shifts stance upon sensing enemy magical creatures sprinting at high speed right up ahead. At that exact instant, several giant wolves with bluish fur and glowing eyes pop up, roaring fiercely from the thick bushes. Taiga swiftly draws his scimitars upon identifying that 3 ferocious silver wolves are attacking his hunter group. The guild's frontline fighters grip their huge two-handed swords and gear up with resolve to face the charging beasts. Raising her staff with both hands, the mage Mai Yumasaki rapidly casts a powerful golden energy shield to protect her allies. A massive, glowing golden spherical barrier wraps around the entire combat squad, blocking the large monster's destructive charge. The squad's archer activates her magic summoning circles and prepares dozens of glowing blue energy arrows floating in the air to attack. One of the giant wolves leaps enraged onto the protective barrier and starts biting and clawing at Taiga's shield with pure brutality. The archer gives the command order and fires a devastating rain of glowing magic arrows right at all the enemy beasts. The energy arrows hit the wolves' bodies head-on and start blowing up sequentially with full force and destructive impact. Hit directly by the explosive barrage, the monsters let out super sharp yelps of pain and collapse, wounded and dazed on the dirt, capitalizing on the opening. Taiga lets out a furious battle cry and rushes forward with twin scimitars in hand to finish the target. The frontline warriors land multiple precise, heavy cuts on the wolves, who scream in agony as they are taken down on the ground. Watching the fight with crossed arms, Tenma acknowledges the solid work and thinks that if this were a normal portal, they would clear it with no sweat. However, Taiga suddenly freezes upon hearing a sinister growl echoing from behind and realizes in terror that the situation is about to flip. 2 much larger beasts covered in dark smoke emerge from the shadows, revealing the terrifying presence of the growth demon right there. One of the giant wolves lunges with crazy speed and sharp fangs straight at Taiga, catching the master off guard with zero time to react, breaking into a cold sweat over that awful unexpected turn. The guild leader grits his teeth, worried seeing mortal danger so close. Taiga yells frantically for everyone to fall back fast inside the protective barrier, while the beasts keep recklessly advancing. The master notices, surprised, that the beasts keep attacking with total fury, even after taking multiple direct hits to their vital spots. Taiga runs frantically amid a heavy glow of energy, while the beasts chase him, growling with jaws wide open. The hunter squad archer floats in the air, unleashing a fresh, massive barrage of magic arrows toward the creatures. The magic attacks hit the wolf head-on, but only generate tiny energy sparks without causing any major wounds on the beast. The young girl gets completely terrified upon realizing her powerful attack magic is taking zero effect against the giant wolves. The wolf's massive jaw begins biting down on the golden protective barrier with so much force that deep cracks web across the structure. With a deafening roar, the beast completely breaks the protective magic shield, leaving every guild member exposed to the attack. Taiga gets blown back violently by the destructive impact of the barrier shatter, forced to retreat in a hurry across the clearing. Another creature lunges fiercely at the frontline warriors, who try to defend themselves as best as they can using their heavy weapons. Mai Yumasaki gets grazed and falls hard onto the damp dirt, letting out a terrified scream seeing the monster right on top of her. Leader Taiga angrily shouts for his squad mates to stay locked in, ordering nobody to fall back and everyone to keep fighting. Tenma explains to Yuna that the demonic aura unleashed by the portal boss causes all local monsters to evolve and grow insanely strong. He thoughtfully comments that this bizarre buffing power is one of the main reasons demons are such feared creatures. The evolved silver wolves attack with pure brutality, easily repelling the pushes from the Roman guild swordsmen. Yuna worriedly says the beasts are way too strong for D rank and suggests they step in to help, but Tenma replies he is still not sure. He explains they might not even be in a spot to help anyone right now while the system triggers his max level perception. A glowing protective sphere pops up around Tenma and Yuna to ensure the safety of both in the middle of that chaotic battle. One of the giant wolves spots the two and runs at top speed toward their protective barrier in a rage. Two large beasts roar fiercely and charge with sharp claws straight at Tenma, aiming to shred his defense shield. The hunter quickly sets his stance and uses his glowing magic sword to block the first wolf's terrifying direct pounce. With a firm battle look, Tenma grips the hilt of his super rare sword, which starts radiating a strong, beautiful bluish glow. He lands a super precise, lethal slash that takes down the beast instantly, making the system notify that he stacked more points. He smirks and praises his soul eater's cutting power, thinking the weapon truly blew past all his best expectations. However, the other two giant beasts charge all at once, leaping at him with sharp claws and teeth ready to strike. Tenma does not flinch at the double attack, and sets himself with pure resolve to drop a fresh, devastating swordsmanship strike. Suddenly, dozens of glowing golden chains pop up floating in the air right behind Tenma, taking the guy by surprise. Those magic chains wrap around the bodies and jaws of both beasts with full force, pinning them completely frozen in midair. The wolves crash heavily onto the dirt, completely bound and unable to react under the active effect of that restraint magic. Yuna pops up right behind, casting the spell, and urgently shouts for Tenma to take the moment and finish off the trapped beasts right away. The hunter agrees and impressed thinks that on top of teleportation, she also runs restraint magic, proving to be super strong indeed. Wasting no time, the young guy starts dropping multiple precise circular strikes that hurl large blue energy waves across the field. He executes a devastating cross-shaped attack that slices the two trapped giant wolves without leaving a shred of survival chance. The body parts of the defeated beasts drop lifelessly onto the damp dirt. While Tenma and Yuna just watch the scene in total chill, Yuna stands jaw-dropped, staring at the ease with which he took down the giant monsters, impressively commenting, "That was wild." Right after, a whitish, glowing magic mist slowly begins rising off the dead remains of the defeated wolves. The system panel confirms his Soul Eater sword automatically started devouring the eliminated beasts' souls. The floating screen shows the current concentration of souls absorbed by the hunter's magic. Sword has already reached 13% of the total. Watching the situation in the adjacent clearing, Yuna worriedly alerts that the Roman guild hunters are still running into serious trouble. Taiga's squad keeps getting brutally cornered by the remaining beasts, who attack with total rage and zero signs of tiring. Desperate, Taiga furiously yells and demands Tenma and Yuna stop just watching and run over right now to help them in battle, keeping his cool with crossed arms. The young hunter fires back, asking if he had not warned them earlier not to touch his prey. Taiga goes completely out of his mind with rage at the cold response, furiously asking how he can speak like that in a moment of danger. But due to his distraction, the guildmaster gets struck with extreme violence by one of the giant wolves. Spitting blood from the pain, Yuna asks again if they really should not do anything to help, and Tenma just lets out a thoughtful grunt without moving an inch. Exhausted, the guild members sit on the damp dirt to rest, and Taiga suggests taking a breather before pushing to the next zone. One of Taiga's warriors looks at him concerned and asks if he is actually planning to keep the raid going with the team in that physical state. The Mage Mai also seriously warns the leader, saying there is zero physical way for the group to push deeper into the portal. Taiga snaps angrily and asks what is wrong with them, arrogantly stating that it is just a simple D-rank portal. He explains that if they fail the quest, they will not be able to buy new gear or pay off their massive debts to other people. Tenma reflects that hunters often forget the simple truth that monsters and portals are dangerous creatures from unknown worlds. Yuna steps in, saying pushing forward is way too dangerous, seriously warning that all local monsters got insanely buffed by the portal. Yuna suggests falling back immediately to request backup from the association, but Taiga angrily fires back, asking if she has any proof of the anomaly. He glares at her pretty sharply and says in a threatening tone that his guild is the one calling the shots there, telling the girl not to cross the line. Taiga arrogantly turns his back, demanding she obey, while Mai watches him in silence with a super worried, tense face. Suddenly, the mage calls out to him with a voice trembling from sheer terror as she notices a terrifying presence quietly approaching from behind. She points with extreme panic toward a dark patch of the forest, drawing Taiga's attention, who quickly whips around to check the spot. The entire hunter group freezes upon catching sight of two massive red eyes glowing intensely in the deep darkness of those thick woods. At that exact second, a giant furry paw wrapped in dark reddish smoke comes crashing down with extreme violence, shattering the dirt ground. A colossal silver wolf emerges imposing from the shadows, radiating an overwhelming demon aura that leaves everyone present in utter shock. The massive creature opens its maw full of sharp teeth and lets out an insanely deafening roar that echoes throughout the portal. The force of the sonic impact is so violent that it generates a shockwave that throws all the Roman guild hunters backward with force. Lying on the damp dirt ground, Taiga looks up trembling in terror, asking with a cracked voice what that monstrous creature in front of him is. Tenma watches the massive wolf from afar and gears up, taking a solid battle stance with his magic sword drawn fearlessly. The young hunter catches the dark aura and deduces with total certainty that colossal creature is the terrifying boss monster of that irregular portal. He steps protectively right in front of Taiga and Mai, who remain collapsed on the ground, completely terrified by the beast's presence. The colossal wolf roars again in pure rage, and the system pops up a floating alert warning that the silver wolf boss is attacking. A blue system message alerts that everyone took a fear debuff from the boss's roar, triggering dizziness and an unbearable headache. Taiga screams frantically, clutching his head with both hands, ordering Yuna to use her escape teleportation magic right now. Hands on her head and hurting from the pain, the girl urgently answers that everyone needs to gather close to her real fast before she loses focus. While suffering from the mental pressure, Tenma sees multiple system alerts pop up, confirming he unlocked and evolved the mindset skill. The blue panel alerts that his resistance to negative mental status effects increased significantly thanks to the sudden level gain. With a reddish aura of pure magic energy around his body, the guy recovers from fatigue and his mental focus capacity jumps up. Taiga struggles to stand holding his head and groans in pain, saying they need to bolt out of there as fast as possible. Right then, Mai Yumasaki gets grabbed from behind by the leg and frantically screams for help upon realizing she is getting dragged by the beasts. With total cowardice and selfishness, Taiga kicks his young ally's hand off to break free and escape alone, leaving the girl behind in the forest. He runs frantically, leaving his own injured guildmates tossed to their fate in the middle of that mortal combat. Tenma catches the man's move and understands that if he escapes now, they will lose the chance to use teleportation magic, needing to pin him down. With an insanely sharp combat look, the young hunter instantly triggers the effects of his active level 7 intimidation skill. A massive projection of a red eye pops up in the air above him, and the system confirms all targets around dropped under the terror effect. Under the crushing blow of Tenma's intimidating aura, the cowardly Taiga loses all strength and face plants onto the damp dirt ground. Yuna kneels, focusing all her remaining power, and creates a large golden magic circle on the floor to prep everyone's teleportation. However, the colossal wolf and the other beasts ignore the barrier and rush in full rage toward the active summoning circle. Seeing lethal danger speeding toward Yuna, Tenma swiftly dashes forward with his magic sword drawn to intercept the enemy monsters. The colossal beast opens its huge maw to swallow them whole, but the young hunter bravely puts himself right in front of the monster. With perfectly synced fluid moves, he spins his bluish magic sword and drops a powerful, precise vertical slash strike. The beasts get repelled and crash groaning in pain onto the dark forest floor, while the hunter team watches the scene in absolute shock. Lying on the damp grass, panting from exhaustion, the Roman guild members relieved realize they were finally saved from that life threat. One of the warriors warns they need to get out fast, but Yuna worriedly notices something went terribly wrong with her escape magic. She stares into the dark woods with total seriousness and reveals with extreme concern to the team that the portal exit is completely sealed shut. Tenma firmly explains that since it is an irregular portal, the magic escape exit will not pop up unless they take down the boss monster. Taiga kneels hopeless in the dirt and panikedly questions how they are supposed to defeat such a colossal, powerful creature. Without a second of hesitation, the young hunter assumes a solid battle stance and holds his magic soul eater sword high in the air. Taiga watches in total shock, hands on his head as he sees the F-rank young hunter fearlessly charge alone against the boss monster. Tenma drops a devastating combo of fast glowing blue energy slashes, slicing the giant wolves with complete ease. He locks his serious gaze onto the creature and calmly tells the hunters not to worry, as he will handle taking down the boss himself. The guy steps forward with firm strides toward the monster, while the defeated Taiga watches him from his knees with deep respect. The guild archer points in terror ahead and asks scared what that dark smoke is that started rising around the beast. A thick mist of dark reddish demon energy starts wrapping around and choking the fallen silver wolf's body on the forest floor. The creature lets out a monstrous, agonized roar while the dark aura smoke starts completely covering and altering its physical form. The wolf's body gets totally consumed by a thick swirl of shadows and black flames floating terrifyingly through the portal air. Tenma watches the scene with total seriousness and wonders if the demon actually took full control over the dead wolf boss's remains. Tenma stares at the enemy seriously and realizes that is the exact target he needs to take down. It is the terrifying growth demon, which appears before them looking terrifying. Yuna gets completely stunned and asks if he actually intends to fight that creature. Tenma calmly answers that he and Yuna are going to beat the monster, leaving everyone around shocked. The other hunters, scared, say that fighting the monster with just 2 people is actual suicide. Ignoring the warning, Tenma calls out for Saejima, who turns around confused to see what the guy wants. The young hunter points to Saejima's metal armor and asks if he could lend it for the fight. While walking, Yuna asks what that creature is and if Tenma has any plan to beat it. He thinks for a moment and simply answers that he intends to just beat it using brute force. Yuna smiles sarcastically and comments that this brilliant plan is perfect for getting both of them killed. Tenma says the boss's sudden power surge locked the portal, but assures their mission does not change. Suddenly, several silver wolves pop up running and roaring furiously toward them. Without hesitating, Tenma pushes forward with his blue sword and shouts that he will take down all the monsters. Meanwhile, another group of giant wolves runs wildly toward Yuna. The hunter casts a powerful lightning spell that hits the approaching beasts head-on. A massive explosion swallows the spot, instantly wiping out the remaining monsters. Tenma praises Yuna's attack, and she proudly answers she will soon be promoted to B-rank hunter. He regrets not gaining experience off those monsters, but admits her help made things easier. Right then, the Soul Eater devours a soul and hits the max mark of 100% concentration. The system alerts that the Soul Eater Sword's special function finally began unlocking. The Soul Release skill is unlocked, greatly boosting attack range and power for 5 seconds. He finds that amazing and reflects that 5 seconds with that much cutting power will make all the difference. Yuna points up concerned and warns that the enemy started giving off a really dangerous aura. Atop a cliff under the full moon, the demon wolf roars and spreads black smoke all across the forest. The colossal beast roars in total rage, commanding the other wolves surrounding him attentively. Tenma notes that the wolves are acting weird, and Yuna explains they are tense because of the boss's howl. The guy knows he needs to strike soon, before the monster fully absorbs the old boss's power. Yuna asks him to share what he knows. Since that creature looks way more like a natural disaster than a simple beast, Tenma reveals that a growth demon possessed the wolf boss, explaining that demons are monsters with evil energy. Suddenly, a system screen pops up warning that they entered enemy domain and will take penalties. The system alert details that no living creature within a 50-meter radius will be able to grow. Yuna gets confused by the penalty, but the young hunter steps up to explain the meaning briefly. While looking at the floating screen, Tenma notices everything is going down exactly as he remembered. This penalty is a signature trait of the demon race, who control evil energy. Each of these beings holds their own domain and projects their influence onto anyone who steps inside it. Inside this domain, it is completely impossible to trigger buff magic or awaken new combat skills. He thinks the effect currently only hits the 50-meter radius, but things will get worse if it keeps going like this. Right then, Yuna catches the weight of the situation and worriedly comments that things got ugly. To make matters worse, she notices the terrible monster atop the cliff just spotted their hiding spot. With a fierce roar, the demon wolf leaps off the cliff and charges at top speed toward the hunters. The monster's crash landing creates a massive smoke screen of dust and cracks the surrounding ground. Tenma moves fast and manages to pull the hunter away, barely dodging the beast's devastating attack. Once the dust clears, a mysterious elf figure with long white hair appears floating in the air. Yuna finds her look odd, and the guy guesses that must be another creature absorbed by the monster. The mystery elf extends her hand and starts channeling a huge orb of purple magic energy. In moments, several of these dark energy orbs float around her, ready to be fired off, seeing the massive power of the enemy attack charging up. Both hunters widen their eyes in pure shock. Tenma worriedly realizes his memory about the growth demon did not include a move like that. He concludes the monster stole the power of the very elf it absorbed and tells Yuna they need to dodge. Tenma gears up for the worst and firmly tells her to dodge as soon as he gives the signal. Suddenly, Tenma's system triggers max-level perception at 10. The demon elf keeps floating while gathering more dark energy around herself. She raises one hand and focuses all her evil power to launch the terrible attack. With a slight finger flick, she unleashes the energy orbs packed with pure destruction. At the exact moment, Tenma yells out to give the agreed dodge signal to Yuna. Multiple devastating purple light beams get fired simultaneously in all directions. The colossal attacks rain down from the sky like dark meteors toward the forest. Tenma throws himself to the ground to barely dodge one of the lethal beams. Right after, he triggers his level 10 agility skill to move faster. He also triggers level 10 footwork to keep perfect control over his movements. To dodge the last few beams, the guy uses level 10 hand-to-hand skill and pulls off acrobatics. The young guy manages to land safely after pulling off an impressive series of dodges. Tenma stands surprised upon realizing he barely made it out, even while stacking 4 skills together. Seeing his borrowed armor smoking, he admits he would be dead if not for it. Knowing the danger, he concludes he needs to strike the enemy before the next energy volley. Meanwhile, the floating creature yawns in boredom and already starts charging another purple blast. Wasting no time, Tenma rockets forward at top speed with his bluish sword drawn. The elf tries to defend by throwing up her energy barrier against his sudden rush. At this crucial moment, Tenma calls out for Yuna to make her support move. Suddenly, several magic pink energy chains shoot up from the ground toward the elf. The binding chains pin the opponent's arms and legs, freezing her completely in midair. Yuna grips the chains tight and shouts for Tenma to drop the final blow right now. The guy builds momentum and charges like lightning at the helpless, totally frozen enemy. He raises the blade, channeling his power, and gears up to use Kirishima-style techniques with a straight, lethal swing. Tenma executes the powerful straight line /strike. The overwhelming blue energy attack splits the elf's body in half with crazy precision. The hunter touches down on the ground and celebrates the strike's success, seeing he scored a direct hit. However, a terrifying growl from behind makes him quickly whip around on guard. The massive wolf-shaped creature rises, imposing right behind the young hunter. Tenma breathes heavily. Trying to catch his breath after the series of physical pushes, he realizes the demon shifted back to giant wolf form to lessen the damage from his slashing strike. On top of that, the monster managed to break free from the binding chains with total ease. Seeing the creature ready to counter, Yuna frantic yells for the guy to watch out. The giant wolf opens its maw and starts charging a massive purple dark energy orb. A colossal beam of destruction gets fired straight at Tenma's spot. The ground gets blasted by a streak of evil energy pillars that destroy everything in the path Tenma runs to escape, and notes the creature is using both the wolf's strength and the elf's magic together. A massive purple explosion goes off right behind the guy, blanketing the whole area in dark smoke. He gets thrown by the impact force and lets out a groan of pain trying to shield from the blast wind. The young hunter tries to quickly regroup, worried about the opponent's crushing power. To back him up, Yuna raises her hands and starts prepping a new glowing magic circle in the air. Taking advantage of the support, Tenma pushes forward again with resolve toward the terrible beast. He lands another precise straight line slash that hits the giant wolf's chest head on. The monster roars in pain from the wound, but bats the young hunter away, sending him flying. The demon beast ignores the pain and runs wild, kicking up a massive dust storm off the ground. Tenma lands awkwardly on the floor, feeling the heavy blow impact from the creature before him. Several dark energy orbs instantly begin forming in the air. He takes a back leap at the last second to avoid getting swallowed by the magic volleys. The ground behind the hunter explodes over and over under the devastating force of the purple shots. Tenma knows they will lose a drawn-out fight and pushes his brain to come up with an exit. Worried about the situation, Tenma glances sideways and wonders how Yuna is holding up in the fight. She is pushing herself to the max, but realizes distressed that her mana is about to hit absolute rock bottom. Suddenly, Tenma catches something weird about the monster's cut-off pieces scattered across the ground. He notices the detached body parts of the enemy are sizzling and failing to regenerate. Tenma concludes the pieces chopped off by his slash do not rejoin the main body and that his attacks work. Sensing victory is close, the guy gears up to land the winning strike on the creature. He dashes at full speed toward the colossal wolf to put an end to that deadly clash once and for all. The guy leaps and strikes the beast with a devastating slash that makes the monster howl in pain amidst the blue glow. Even severely wounded, the giant wolf uses its remaining strength to try to crush Tenma with its paws. He manages to dodge nimbly and recalls he is still holding on to an insanely powerful attack. The guy decides to use the soul release special skill on his Soul Eater sword. Knowing he only has the 5-second effect window, he watches the creature prepare one last magic spell. Tenma yells out Yuna's name to grab her attention and drop the final plan instructions. Yuna gets surprised and scared, asks why he is running straight toward her. Without explaining much, Tenma simply scoops her up onto his shoulders and keeps sprinting as fast as he can. While running, he asks if she can use her magic to teleport them both right above the monster's head. She says she only has mana for one shot, and Tenma assures that single chance will be more than enough. The ground behind them violently explodes due to the non-stop magic energy shots from the demon. Yuna calls him an idiot for the risky idea, but brings her hands together to activate her teleport circle. The second the wolf's massive power blast is about to hit them, a bright glow wraps around them. The beast's attack hits the empty spot head-on, triggering a massive explosion that vaporizes the dirt high up in the sky. A magic rift starts opening up right above the giant wolf's position. The portal tears open in midair, and both hunters pop out, falling at high speed toward the enemy. Feeling the sharp drop, Yuna holds on for dear life to the guy's body so she does not fall alone. At that decisive instant, Tenma activates the powerful soul release skill on his magic sword. With the power active, his blade's range and destruction force get jacked up to crazy levels. He raises his glowing sword and drops a crushing slash directly onto the wolf's head. The move turns into a giant-sized straight-line slash that rips through the air with immense power. The technique evolves into a colossal cut that comes down like a massive blue lightning beam, slicing the enemy in half. A blue light explosion of giant scale swallows the entire battlefield all at once. When the flash finally fades, the system alerts on screen that the terrible demon was defeated. All that dark evil energy starts clearing from the air, completely vanishing from the forest, completely wiped out and out of juice. Yuna slumps lying on the damp grass, trying to catch her breath. She stares at the starry sky and thoughtfully wonders who that mysterious young hunter actually is. Yuna questions his motives for hiding such absurd power while registered as a mere F-rank Tenma smiles happy seeing the system. Notification confirming he finally ranked up to D rank. Yuna walks up and tells him to stand up, but the guy tiredly replies he will not be able to move for a bit. She seriously insists, saying they will be in deep trouble if they do not clear out of there right now. Right then, dozens of silver wolves start popping up out of the forest shadows and surround them. The beasts bare sharp fangs and growl hostiles. Ready to pounce on the exhausted hunters, Tenma asks with an awkward smile for her to hold off the wolves for 5 minutes, making Yuna huff annoyed. To recover her strength, the hunter opens and quickly chugs an mid-tier mana restoration potion. With her magic refilled, she madly warns he will have to treat her to a super expensive meal after all this. Tenma stays lying down, and relieved thinks just 1 minute of rest will be enough for him to recover. A fresh wave of magic power sweeps the forest, clearing out all remaining monsters around. The Roman guild guy watches the scene in total shock, seeing Yuna's real devastating power in action. The sun starts rising on the horizon, while the system confirms the irregular portal was fully cleared. The surviving guild members celebrate with extreme joy upon realizing they are finally saved. While walking, Yuna supports Tenma by the shoulders and makes sure to remind him about the agreed expensive dinner. Tenma smiles thankful and softly says he already feels better and can walk on his own from there. Tenma thanks for the help and returns the broken metal armor pieces to their original owner. Saejima cries, seeing his destroyed gear, while Mai thanks both of them for saving their lives. Yuna lets them know the association will reach out and asks Mai to explain everything in detail. When they call, before leaving, the young hunter walks up to Tenma and shyly asks what his name is. The guy cracks a friendly smile and makes up a fake name, saying he goes by Buson Goriki. Mai bows thanking Mr. Goriki, while Yuna watches the scene beside him, finding that name super weird. Yuna whispers asking if he is a fugitive or why he hides his identity, but Tenma says it is not really like that. He thinks it would be great to have a major guild backing him, but the real issue is that he is leveling up way too fast. If he draws attention and gets on the hit list of the demons hiding in society, it will be game over for him. He concludes he needs to stay low-key until he grows strong enough to protect himself on his own. Yuna stares at him and asks if he wants her to also alter the actual info in the official report. She admits they avoided a major disaster thanks to him, but still hesitates if lying like that is right. Tenma looks at her with a gentle smile and comments that help with the report would mean a lot to him. Facing that unexpected smile, Yuna turns bright red and tries to cover up her embarrassment. She quickly turns around and shouts for him to call later, without forgetting his promise to treat her to a meal. However, the young guy calls her back, catching the hunter by surprise with the sudden request. Still pretty flushed, she turns back around and asks what he wants with that persistence. He points to his dirty clothes and asks if she could use spatial teleportation to drop him off in Ryuzan. Yuna's face flips on the spot and she glares at him with extreme irritation over the nerve of that ride request. Without dropping a single word, she activates her power and vanishes in a blue light beam, leaving him behind. The next day, the city's normal routine seems to have fully returned to its usual quiet. In his bedroom bed, Tenma wakes up stretching while the system triggers his recovery skill. He smiles, super satisfied, and thinks to himself that this really is a total cheat skill. The system reveals that just 1 night's sleep was enough to refill 35% of the bar. He celebrates that taking down the demon got him to D rank, letting his skills pass level 10. Suddenly, his phone starts vibrating on the bedsheet, grabbing his attention. He picks up the phone and sees 4 missed calls from Hiroki Gondo, the team lead at the agency where he worked. He lets out a soft sigh and decides he will no longer take any kind of temporary fill-in jobs. Next, he opens his floating system inventory screen to organize some collected items. The young guy pulls out a high-purity D-rank ++ mana crystal that glows brightly in his hand. He regrets it came from a D-rank dungeon, but notes the high purity should net around 500,000 yen. The system details the rewards for beating the demon, including unlocking the mysterious reversal shop. Tenma checks out the new system screen and curiously comments that it looks nothing like a normal shop. The interface explains that points earned at the level cap can be spent to make special purchases there. For now, only the consumables tab is unlocked, and he wonders if weapons will be added later. He looks over the available options in the consumable shop and runs into an intriguing treasure acquisition potion. The guy reflects that the game system never offered him any tool that put him at a disadvantage. Without hesitating further, he decides to spend his 500 banked points to buy the item. The potion bottle glows blue, and the description reveals it points out the exact path to a valuable treasure. Thinking money is a crucial weapon inside portals, he decides he has absolutely nothing to lose by drinking it. Skipping further delay, the young hunter downs the blue bottle in one shot, chugging all the mysterious liquid inside. He checks the empty container and starts frustrated, commenting that nothing seems to have changed in his physical body. Suddenly, a small bluish flame with a yen symbol pops up, floating right above his head. The blue flame moves fast through the air and starts dropping down toward where his phone is lying. Tenma watches pretty confused as the tiny magic fire settles and floats right over his device. The bluish yen energy starts sinking and silently merging with the device's lit screen. The symbol shines right over Gondo's call, making Tenma ask if the system wants him to return the call. He puts the phone to his ear to make the call, and soon hears Gondo's impatient voice yelling from the other side. The boss rants furious, asking why he took so long to call and demands he get to the office right now. Instead of getting intimidated by the yelling, Tenma cracks a confident smirk upon catching the exact plan of the potion. Gondo strides over and angrily asks what the guy just said on the phone. With total cool, Tenma simply tells him to stay right where he is and hangs up the call. He casually walks down the commercial street, following the bluish flame serving as his guide. The small blue flame enters the building's dark hallway and points straight at one of the doors. The system tracker confirms the treasure acquisition potion's effect is still active. He opens the door carefully and wonders what kind of valuable treasure could be hidden in there. The second he steps in, Tenma gets yelled at by Gondo, who cusses at him and calls him a useless sub. The leader rants about being ignored, blaming him for a major loss and telling him to get ready. Gondo orders his thug goons to teach the guy a corrective lesson, just like old times. Tenma knows Gondo is a regular human who only ordered him around because of the goons protecting him. Triggering memory search, he recalls the various times he got beat up by them. The attackers are Masato Kido and Taiji Kumagawa, two violent D-rank hunters from that agency. Kumagawa mockingly grabs Tenma's face and aggressively asks what he is staring at. So hard, Gondo warns the goons that the guy is acting weird and orders them to beat him up already. The brute yanks Tenma by his jacket collar and says he still has not grasped the gravity of the situation. Even being D-rank, Tenma knows he is on another level, since their skills are low level. Activating level 10 physical strength, the young guy grabs the attacker's wrist with extreme ease and power. In one quick move, Tenma hurls the giant brute across the office room. The goon hits the bookshelf hard, leaving Gondo and the other thug completely in shock. Furious seeing his partner get taken down, Kido charges forward with fist raised to strike the young guy. With level 10 perception active, Tenma dodges the punch with a simple head tilt. Right after, he triggers his level 10 martial arts skill and lands a heavy counterpunch. The blow hits the opponent's chin with precision, knocking him out cold onto the floor. Panicked seeing both his guards down, Gondo screams for them to get up and fight. Kumagawa stands back up enraged and starts channeling all his physical power, ripping his clothes. The goon triggers level 5 body strength amplification, taking on a terrifying muscular stance. With a furious roar, the giant sprints at top speed to try to crush the guy in one go. However, Tenma is way faster and lands a devastating punch straight to the brute's face. The impact force is so huge it launches the giant opponent through the air, flying right over Gondo. The D-rank hunter violently crashes against the office wall, letting out an agonizing groan of pain. Lying among the debris, the defeated thug mumbles threats saying he will ruin Tenma's career. Ignoring the threats, Tenma approaches the terrified Gondo, who drops to his knees trembling in fear. While Gondo tries to yell empty threats, the potion's blue flame floats right before his scared eyes. Tenma just lifts his foot with a calm smile and sarcastically asks what he thinks is about to happen. Completely humiliated, all three thugs kneel before Tenma and sincerely apologize for everything. Tenma calls him out on the bogus ride deductions from his pay, making the boss promise to refund everything right away. He steps back a bit and starts looking around the room, wondering where the cash inside could be hidden. The guy notices the blue flame hovering persistently right in the middle of one of the bookshelf racks. He reaches out to push aside the stacked volumes on the shelf to see what is hidden behind them, behind the books. The hunter finds a digital metal safe with the blue flame pointing to the exact spot. Tenma points to the safe and asks if that is it, leaving Gondo totally frantic on the room floor. Gondo cringes in fear, begging for mercy upon realizing his secret was completely exposed. The boss tries to keep front, saying the safe has a complex 20-digit passcode impossible to crack. However, the special potion bypasses all system security and reveals the correct number combinations. He smirks and wonders if the contents locked in that safe will really lead him to a massive treasure. The guy simply punches in the numbers shown on the magic screen to open up the device. The safe door unlocks and reveals a financial ledger and a super fancy glowing key. Gondo screams in disbelief, not getting how he opened the safe, while Tenma checks out the illegal earnings book. He picks up the mana crystal key, and the system alerts it can be sold for at least 1 million yen. Tenma, amused, reflects that scoring 1 million yen is a great treasure, even if it feels almost like a robbery. He checks out the investigation report on a Yokohama dungeon and tells Gondo to hang on a second. Tenma smiles, recognizing that dungeon, and concludes he can score a total fortune off it. Gondo cries, begging him not to take the document, saying he spent big money and that a D rank cannot step in. The young hunter gives a mocking smile and casually answers that he will decide on that himself. Suddenly, the office door bursts open and a long-haired mystery man steps into the place. The man in a white lab coat comments, surprised he did not expect to run into anyone else there before him. Tenma widens his eyes in shock upon instantly recognizing that major figure's identity. The newcomer slowly walks up to Tenma and asks with a smile if he knows who he is. It is Kyosuke Sengoku, an insanely famous man whose name was known by everyone in the old world. Sengoku sarcastically answers. He also knows who he is, calling him an F-rank talentless hunter. He comments that it is precisely by that nickname of useless sub that people usually call him there. The silver-haired man looks with interest toward the open safe, where the blue flame is still floating with total cool. Tenma holds up the secret document he found in the safe and asks if that is what he is looking for. Sengoku gets intrigued and asks with a curious smile how the young hunter knew about his goal. Gondo tries to drag himself frantically to stop them, begging them not to touch that document. Showing no mercy, Sengoku strikes Gondo's neck with a fast blow to shut him up for good. The agency boss falls knocked out cold onto the floor, leaving Sengoku free to keep up the chat. He holds the document and asks why Gondo lied about that, commenting he had been searching for it for a long time. The legendary hunter thanks Tenma for his cooperation and states he would love to return the favor in the future. He extends his hand offering a business card and tells Tenma to call that phone number in a week. Tenma stares at the card surprised, unable to believe he just got personal contact info for Sengoku himself. Sengoku was known as a hero and an S-rank beast who predicted the demon invasion in the old world. He held an overwhelming intel network, being one of the most influential and plugged-in minds around as Sengoku steps out of the room. He smirks and comments that he finds Tenma a fascinating person. He looks back and admits finding it wild that even he got fooled by the young guy's cover. Tenma also reflects on Sengoku's moves and admits he is indeed a super intriguing person. The man in the white coat says goodbye. Laughing at the fact that he was fooled by the guy's weak rep, Sengoku reveals he knows Tenma was the one who quietly solved the dangerous Nightcrow Guild incident. He assures he holds zero intention of blackmailing him with that secret battle info. However, he admits being curious about his motives and says he would love to hear the story at their next meet. Bidding farewell, Sengoku vanishes into a swirl of gray mist, leaving the room empty. Tenma smiles, pocketing the card, and thinks scoring that direct contact was a stroke of absolute luck. Suddenly, a new system screen alerts he just unlocked the rare passive luck skill. The description explains the new power significantly boosts the odds of good fortune heading his way. He thinks that with Sengoku's help, it will be easy to get rich and score valuable leads on the demons. The blue glow fades and the system alerts that the treasure potion's effect, finally, ran out opening the special system shop. Tenma sees his point balance went completely back to zero. He recalls the talent potion is still for sale, but knows he will need to score more points to buy it. The hunter decides to focus on leveling up and spending the funds scored off Gondo to buy gear. A bit later, he walks back down Ryuzan's busy commercial street to do his hunting shopping. He shows a list of items on his phone to the shop clerk, who rushes off to grab the tools geared up with a backpack, shovel, and pickaxe. He regrets spending so much cash, but knows tools are key. Checking his hunter bank account, he sees frustrated that his remaining balance is just 7,000 yen. With a forced smile, the guy tries to comfort himself, thinking that is just an initial investment. Later, up in the Yokohama mountains under the sunset, Tenma starts digging into rocks searching for the dungeon. He lets out a sigh of relief upon finally finding and opening the ancient stone portal hidden in the hill. As he walks down the stairs, he notices there is a strong mental barrier guarding the spot. Just as the document said, a purple magic orb blocks access and would cause severe brain damage to any normal hunter attempting to pass. He decides to force his way into the purple barrier and groans in pain, feeling the heavy pressure on his mind. Triggering level 3 mental power, Tenma focuses his mind and resists the enemy spell meant to shake his emotions. He drops to his knees, hands on his head, while illusory voices from the past insult him as a useless, deadweight hunter. One of the voices mocks him, asking how someone weak like that could have the guts to call himself a hunter. The guy feels all the negative emotions from his past life rush back like a wave, as if returning to those days. Gondo pops up in the illusion, ranting that taking a goblin would be way better than taking trash hunter like him. However, Tenma locks his mind, remembering he changed, and the system triggers level 3 mental power to resist the magic. He leans against the stone wall, and the system alerts that his mental power jumped to levels 4 and 5. Catching his breath slowly, the hunter leans on the brick wall and keeps walking down the hallway. He admits he definitely would not have made it past that barrier if he did not hold mental power. He finally enters a huge dark stone chamber decorated with gargoyle statues on the walls. Further ahead, a purple mental barrier even larger and more powerful than the first blocks his path. He finds it odd that he pushed deep into the dungeon and still ran into 0 monsters. Triggering level 10 memory search, Tenma starts piecing together the traits of that portal. He recalls reports saying high C-rank hunters could step in, but that only applied to the entrance. Deep down, there is a mental block not even an S-rank bypasses, causing the portal to be ruled by a demon commander. It is a commander holding absolute SSS rank power, a terrifying being that drove humanity to despair. Tenma recalls that beyond this barrier lies the gear the future demon commander would use. He concludes the valuable items he can swipe from, there are the actual treasure indicated by the potion. According to the info, from here on, he will have to deal not just with mind magic, but traps too. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoes through the stone corridor, and the young hunter instantly snaps on guard. The area fills with purple energy, and Tenma groans in pain, taking another hit to the mind. Multiple lethal arrows shoot at him, forcing him to trigger perception and footwork at level 10. The guy knows that if he lacked perception or mental power to resist, things would turn awful. He would have been frozen by mind magic and easily hit and killed by that arrow rain. Knowing dodging by sight alone is impossible, he triggers perception, tend to dodge the moment he hears the sound. The sharp projectiles slam hard into the stone floor, striking only the empty spot where he was standing. He moves forward with speed and precision, executing swift moves to clear the traps untouched. The hunter uses his arms and dodges the remaining arrows, insanely nimble amidst the assault. He pulls an acrobatic move to escape, and the system alerts that his mental power jumped to level 6. While sprinting past the huge arrow streak, his mental power level rises to 7. He leaps nimbly, dodging stone spears, and his mental power bumps to level 8. The guy pulls an aerial leap to dodge ceiling rubble crashing down, and his mental power hits level 9. Running from a giant rolling boulder chasing him down the hall, his mental power reaches level 10. He slides under the dangerous obstacle, and the system reveals his mental power broke the cap, hitting level 11. With max level hit, he realizes shocked that he feels completely fine, even while taking mental hits. The new screen reveals the anti-psychic magic skill, granting him total immunity against mind spells. Tenma walks with confident steps, while thick purple mist starts covering the dungeon floor. The hunter seriously checks out the glowing mist and catches it carries super weird energy. This fog marks the start of an illusion spell, so violent, even S-rank hunters found it unbearable. To the side, the illusion of an old fallen warrior pops up crying and begging on his knees to be killed. Various tormented shades scream and apologize in despair, reliving their worst past traumas. But thanks to active level 11 mental power, Tenma keeps total cool and ignores those pain visions. The young hunter ignores the cries and walks straight past the scary projections showing 0 shake. At the end of the grand stone hall, a creature in dark horned armor waits, holding a sword. He draws his blue sword, and Hype concludes taking down that warrior is the key to scoring the treasure. Suddenly, a heavy pulse of bluish electric energy wraps around the blade and the guy's body. The system details that beating the growth demon granted his weapon the power to absorb evil energy. Triggering level 10 swordsmanship, Tenma charges fearlessly, ready to test his sword's new power. The two warriors clash swords with extreme violence, unleashing a heavy magic energy shockwave. Tenma pushes his attack and drops a heavy glowing slash strike to attempt to crack the enemy defense. He plants his feet on the ground and notices his strikes deal no damage, forcing him to trigger level 10 endurance. He realizes the opponent is insanely tough and still uses a sword aura infused with pure magic. To make things worse, 2 more armored warriors emerge from the shadows to back up the portal. Boss Tenma observes the summoned minions and wonders if at level 20 he can really beat them. He pauses for a sec and asks himself if he would also gain experience points taking down the boss's minions. Confident he will gain experience, he decides to get serious now that his D rank promotion lets him level up, thanks to his trait that multiplies experience. Taking down these monsters will net a wild evolution. Determined, he dashes fast at the two armored warriors blocking the path. He triggers his level 7 intimidation skill, casting a scary presence over the enemies. Using Kirishima style, the hunter drops a high-precision straight-line slash on the opponents. The blue energy strike cuts through the armor and bodies of both minions simultaneously with extreme ease. The system alerts that his multiplier boosted stat gains after taking down the creatures. The effect that multiplies his experience by 100,000 times triggers, sending his level soaring fast. The hunter gets wrapped in an intense blue glow upon hitting level 30 instantly in the dungeon. Seeing the minions drop, the portal boss raises his magic sword and summons even more monsters to the fight. Showing zero hesitation, Tenma charges again at the fresh threats popping up before him. He moves with extreme agility and drops precise strikes, wiping out the enemy hordes in seconds, stacking perception and martial arts at level 10. The young guy adapts his moves masterfully in combat. With fast, devastating cuts, he obliterates every single summoned opponent trying to surround him in the hall. The guy lands firmly on the stone floor, focused and ready to keep up the grind to level up. He glows brightly once again while notifications confirm he has already reached level 39, hitting level 40. The guy notices satisfied that the summoned monsters finally stopped spawning. Now, only the imposing dungeon boss remains, staring at him while holding his huge purple energy sword. The monster swings a destructive strike in the air, creating a shockwave that cracks the floor and scatters debris. Triggering straight line slash at level 10, Tenma dashes fast through the rocks to counter. The hunter's blue blade slices the enemy's purple magic right in half in a beautiful display of pure swordsmanship. He closes in with precision and strikes directly at the opponent's metal helm with his glowing sword. A violent blast of red and blue energy swallows the impact spot of the young guy's devastating strike. The giant armored warrior finally falls defeated to the floor, releasing beams of pure blue energy. His sword absorbs the demon energy, boosting its attack, while he praises the massive power of level 40. The system alerts that having hit the max allowed level, he will start earning special points instead of experience. He gains 213 points, and the panel confirms clearance rewards are being generated. The hunter explains that unlike normal portals, dungeons always offer a final clearance reward. He raises his hands and curiously watches a bright light drop, wondering what the commander's secret item could be. The heavy golden glow concentrates in his palms, slowly revealing the shape of the mystery object. When the light finally dims, he sees the grand prize is just a simple, low-key metal ring. He lets out an intrigued sigh and reflects that he definitely should not judge an item's worth solely by its looks. The system details the defense ring is unique rank, but warns its main functions are sealed. Realizing it is a growth-type item, he gets hyped knowing his experience multiplier. The young hunter smiles satisfied, remembering this type of item evolves alongside the user through experience. The status panel displays Tenma is now at capped level 40, stacking 313 points. Due to his broken limit, a fresh special item is generated, and the system unlocks the next evolution quest. The new limit break quest requires him to collect 3 demon sources to gain extra perks. He wonders if the system knows his actual goal, which is saving the world by stopping the terrible demon invasion. Tenma finds the system's precision way too spot on and reflects on the reasons why the demons have not attacked yet. The reason is that the human environment is different from theirs, which sparked the enemy plot called the Demon Energy Project. That plan consisted of spreading sacred relics charged with highly concentrated demon energy across the world. By scattering these evil sources throughout various cities, they aim to prep the ground for the global invasion. In the past, the shocking testimony of a traitor collaborating with the demons exposed the full truth behind the plot. He mocked humans, saying they thought the invasion began out of nowhere, but were completely dead wrong. The traitor laughingly revealed that the demons were making attack preparations long before humanity noticed the threat. The traitor reveals they were gathering demon sources to map out the invasion of the human world in a scheme called the Demon Energy Project. He cries frantically and confesses he really did not know those guys held such awful plans. The hunters hear in shock the revelation that the demons' plan was simply to wipe all humanity off the face of the earth. Suddenly, a sharp noise echoes through the room as the punishment lands and shuts the traitor up for good. Tenma reflects that if he manages to destroy the demon sources, he can stop the invasion and halt the terrible Demon Energy Project. With his next objective set, the young guy decides it is time to open the system menu and check his new rewards. A floating message pops up, warning a special item is being delivered thanks to his talentless limit break effect. Tenma recalls he always scores rare items upon hitting level caps, like the Soul Eater, and gets curious about what he will get now. The intense light starts dimming before his eyes, and the hunter gets surprised as he starts making out the shape of the new object. He holds the newly generated system object and notices the reward. This time is a powerful glowing three-pronged spear. A week passes, and Tenma walks calmly toward a massive, modern hunter training facility in the city. Looking at regular people living in peace, he recalls never seeing this quiet before his regression and vows to protect it. Right then, Tenma's phone starts vibrating, and he pulls the device from his pocket to check the fresh alert that just landed. He sees messages from Yuna demanding food and an apology from Gondo, but decides the best move for now is to just ignore it all. The young guy pockets his phone and keeps walking through the tree-lined entrance of the imposing building, where other warriors also move about. He smirks upon realizing that, after so many twists, he actually ended up at that famous training spot. Tenma reflects he could never afford the elite training center due to lack of cash, but now holds plenty of budget to test it out. Suddenly, he catches the loud roar of an engine revving hard right behind him and quickly glances back to see what is going down. A fancy red sports car comes speeding down the lane, dangerously drifting toward where the young hunter is standing. The system automatically triggers level 10, Perception, letting Tenma react fast and dodge the vehicle nimbly. Pretty annoyed by the driver's recklessness, the guy yells, asking if the person lost their mind and is trying to run him over. The red car door opens and a stylish young guy wearing a hooded jacket starts calmly stepping out of the driver's seat. Tenma stands watching the mystery guy approach him in the training center yard, keeping his guard fully active. Looking closer at the imposing outline against the sun glare, Prota begins recognizing who that cocky guy is. He follows with his eyes the newcomer's steps, walking with total confidence toward him in the middle of the busy outdoor entrance. The young hunter tries to dig through memory for the identity of the red sports car driver who almost ran him down seconds ago. The blue-haired guy cracks a big smile and calls Tenma master, celebrating big time for running into him at that elite spot. He shows off the ride, saying he bought it with his guild signing bonus, and Tenma takes the chance to ask which guild he joined. The guy proudly reveals he joined the famous Guardian Guild, leaving Prota slightly surprised by the major news info panels explain that the Guardian Sword, Silver Wing, and 5 Stars are the 3 largest and most influential guilds in the whole country. The guild recognized Taiyo Kirishima's talent as a sword saint and dropped a massive bonus, explaining how he scored the car. Tenma seriously asks him to stop calling him master, but the blue-haired guy gets confused and asks why that is. Prota explains that carrying that title feels like a heavy burden, making Kirishima ask how else he should address him. He dismisses the idea of being called Big Brother, finding it weird, and tells the guy to just call him whatever feels best. Kirishima starts brainstorming options and comments that slapping on formal titles like Sir does not seem to fit them well either. Out of patience to keep up that long chat, Tenma politely bids farewell and starts walking toward the building reception desk. Noticing Prota is leaving alone, the blue-haired swordsman shouts for him to wait and quickly runs after him. At reception, Tenma gets shocked by the insane price chart for each session and decides he will start testing out just the A-rank room. Right then, Kirishima pops up beside him with a smile and holds out a shiny golden card to cover the payment at the desk. The receptionist thanks smiling and lets them know she will guide both young hunters straight to the luxury VIP training room. Reading the price promo flyer, Tenma almost falls backward, seeing that special VIP room costs a steep 3 million yen. Kirishima casually asks if Master wants to come along, making Tenma mentally recognize the value of that disciple of his inside the massive simulation space. Several glowing magic energy dragon projections float in the air as both gear up. With a fast, precise move, the new spear gets thrown with so much force that it pierces the simulated barrier in the blink of an eye. The tip of the magic weapon shatters the virtual obstacles, scattering glowing energy fragments all across the huge training hall. Prota makes a simple air gesture and manages to catch the weapon with total firmness, displaying impressive reflex control. The status screen reveals it is the unique rank returning spear, an item that flies back to his hand with just a thought command. Impressed, Kirishima praises the new weapon and asks what its moves are, but Tenma just lets out an awkward sigh. He sheepishly confesses he just threw it hard, while his level 11 throwing skill grants bonus damage and speed. The guy concludes the spear's momentary destruction power tops even his main sword, making it perfect to run as a secondary weapon. The massive dragon projections roar fiercely through the simulation room. Rushing toward Tenma and his partner Taiyo, leaps with resolve holding his blades, thinking there is no way he can afford to fall behind his master. The blue-haired guy lets out a powerful yell as he lands a devastating strike that cuts the virtual projections in half. He pulls acrobatic mid-air moves to slice another digital monster trying to surround him from behind. watching that impressive scene. Tenma recognizes the Sword Saint's wild talent and admits he could not even copy that. The blue-haired swordsman lands super light on the ground after clearing the whole sim area with his flawless swordsmanship. Despite the cool attack, he kneels disappointed and comments to himself that he still did not hit the result he wanted. He approaches Tenma and asks to see the straight line slash once more, guessing his master also has not fully perfected it yet. Tenma guides him to keep training the moves and connect sky and earth, leaving the disciple confused on how to do that. To demo, Prota builds momentum and leaps insanely high toward the ceiling of the massive simulation hall. He says it goes exactly like that and triggers the straight line slash that was already at level 10 with 99% mastery. Thanks to the talentless limit break, the strike releases so much energy that the move finally evolves to the unprecedented level 11. The crushing impact creates a wind wave so violent that the blue-haired guy needs to brace himself to avoid getting swept away. Prota touches down smoothly while his blade still glows with an intense, mysterious bluish flame after the attack hyped up. The disciple hugs Tenma and says he will name that the Tsukishiro-style slash, but Master fires back saying it is not that big a deal. He cries tears of joy realizing his master managed to evolve a legendary skill, praising the extraordinary feat. While his friend celebrates, Tenma's phone starts ringing again, and he decides to pull the device from his pocket to pick up. He looks at the smartphone's lit screen and catches that the caller is none other than famed hunter Kyosuke Sengoku. He thanks for the room loan and lets him know he needs to bounce due to an urgent, unexpected issue, leaving his partner stunned. The young hunter steps through the automatic doors and leaves the training spot with firm strides, locked on his next commitment. Alone, Taiyo clenches his fist with resolve and vows to himself he will train non-stop until he reaches his master's strike level. In a quiet cafe, Sengoku kicks off the chat thanking Big Time for the valuable cooperation the guy offered him the other day. The silver-haired hunter explains his guild's spot flipped completely and calls that turn of events a stroke of divine luck. Sengoku sets a drink on the table and says he would love to show his immense gratitude to the young hunter in his own way. He rests his hands elegantly and reinforces holding a personal rule of always returning favors people do for him. The experienced man explains he hates owing anyone anything, making Tenma stare at him with heavy attention and curiosity. The young guy recalls that in the ruined future, that silver-haired man acted as a super cold, calculating intel broker. He remembers Sengoku's harsh words, saying he was a human ally but not a charity, demanding intel to help out. The guy reflects that in his past memory, that pragmatic figure was completely different from all other heroes he met. Since Sengoku acts strictly off cold math, Tenma realizes he must be a super useful and needed asset for him right now. Prota decides to set a big white bag on the table and asks if the experienced hunter is really going to return the favor. Opening the bag, Sengoku asks what that is, and the guy reveals they are mana crystals scored from the dungeon. Gondo was hiding. Tenma points to the valuable glowing golden ores stacked up and says he would like to run a direct trade deal with him. The young hunter adds he does not want to do this just once, but aims to keep this business partnership going continuously. He knows trading so many shady crystals requires high trust, but bets the man will not care if it nets cash. The intel broker smiles and takes the deal, assuring he keeps his word and reminding the guy also promised to cooperate with him. Satisfied with the treasure potion effect, the guy pulls a folded paper from his pocket and lets him know he has one more pending topic to cover. Unfolding the paper, the man in glasses catches it as a detailed list holding names of people, spots, and even rare items. Tenma explains he listed data he holds only basic clues on, looking to uncover leads on the demon source's locations. Knowing his ally's massive intel network, Prota directly asks for him to use his skills to locate those targets. Sengoku checks the list seriously and comments he would love to help, but warns that investigation runs on a way bigger scale than expected. The guy asks with a smile if it would be possible to score backup on this search, and the silver-haired man accepts the request right away. He calls the young guy a D-rank mercenary, leaving Tenma super surprised by him already knowing his new rank without anyone saying a word. He shows a tablet and explains the portal has a D-rank cap, making the presence of a skilled warrior like him key to the plan. Looking at the screen info, the young guy realizes he finally hit the actual reason why he was called to that meeting. Sengoku points to a picture of a large crystal and reveals he urgently needs him to bring an artifact called the Jewel of Aldoria. From there, Prota rests his hand on his chin, intrigued hearing the name of that Jewel of Aldoria, feeling that item sounds super familiar. Tenma asks if he will run solo on the mission, but Sengoku reveals he recruited other D-rank hunters who also hold insane talents. With a confident glare through his glasses, the experienced intel broker asks if he would like to meet the team first. Later, Tenma arrives at the outdoor meet spot and shyly greets the new squad mates holding extraordinary talents. Looking at the two new teammates before him, Tenma asks himself if it is really them and suggests a quick intro round for everyone. The muscular man introduces himself as Masayoshi Yakumo, says he is the group tank, and asks the attackers to trust him on the front line. Tenma recalls the Iron Wall Yakumo was actually an infamous newbie abuser and killer in the past, completely low life. The other hunter, acting shy, introduces himself as Yozaki and comments his combat specialty is running electric spells. Proto recalls Jin Yozaki actually turns into the Electric Psycho, a terrifying villain who takes many lives in the future. While Akane Hoshimori introduces herself saying she uses daggers, Tenma notices Sengoku truly picked only top talent people. Catching the guy staring hard at her, the pink-haired girl sharply asks what he is looking at so closely. She says they just need to do the job fast and bounce, while Tenma finally starts recalling who she really is. He mutters Akane Hoshimori's name out loud, making the girl jump and ask how he knows her identity. Tenma plays it off with a smile and thinks that despite the other villains, Sengoku at least included one actually decent person on the squad. He recalls how people in the ruined future carried awful traumas and deep pain, losing their minds amid the suffering. Among the survivors, the most eccentric hunters were called the oddballs, and the pink-haired girl was precisely one of them. She survived purely by stealing everything she could off monsters, demons, and even needy humans, making zero distinction. Surprised to run into her so early, Tenma stares at her, and she annoyed asks if there is something on her face, wanting to know who he really is. He calmly introduces himself as Tenma Tsukishiro, a D-rank hunter who usually runs swords and spears in combat quests. Yakumo drops a loud laugh and cuts off their chat, cheerfully suggesting the group finally start entering the portal. The team of 4 warriors starts marching unified and determined toward the large, glowing golden portal atop the green hill. Crossing the glowing portal, a system panel pops up, confirming Proto just officially entered the special dungeon. The floating alert indicates all squad members meet the restricted entry requirements for D-rank or lower warriors. The young hunter squints due to the bright light and tries to lock his vision to understand the map layout of where they landed. They run head-on into a setting completely different from the outside, facing a massive, scorching sand desert under the hot sun. The teammates start complaining about the extreme heat, and the group tank asks for a sec to trigger some special ice kits he brought. He materializes a magic cooling ice item in his hands to instantly chill everyone's body temperature there. Tenma catches that the others got useful intel off Sengoku before coming, indicating Yakumo is the one calling the plays. Relieved by the item's chill, the girl feels refreshed while the leader orders everyone forward, keeping their guard fully active. The 4 hunters start walking side by side across the endless dunes of the mystery dungeon's massive, quiet desert. Suddenly, Tenma stops walking and drops a firm warning, asking every team member to halt their march immediately. Thanks to active perception at level 10, Proto warns seriously that a magic creature is approaching right up ahead. The leader tries squinting against the sun glare, but fails to spot any close threat on the dunes and turns somewhat suspicious. Dismissing the warning, Yakumo claims he will block any strike with his shield and orders them to stop stressing and just follow him. At that exact second, the desert sand violently explodes, and a giant scorpion with red eyes emerges from deep underground. Surprised by the monster's pop-up, the leader admits the guy actually had a point and praises the sharp vision he displayed. Gripping his wooden shield and battle axe tight, he commands the group to stay protected right behind his back. He triggers level 5 taunt to draw enemy aggro and yells, calling out the creature to hit him head-on. The giant scorpion lets out a sharp screech and charges in blind rage at Yakumo's glowing shield under the desert sun with a brutal crunch. The monster's claws collide against the protective energy barrier created by the frontline tank. While Akane gears up to dodge, Yozaki starts gathering a heavy electricity orb in his hands to unleash his magic attack. A crushing blue electric beam gets fired in a straight line across the sands, slamming head-on into the giant opponent's shell. The electric blast sparks a burst of glowing sparks, paralyzing the creature which cracks under the weight of the cast spell. Taking advantage of the paralysis gap, Akane builds momentum and leaps at high speed, wielding her sharp combat daggers at the target. With nimble moves and precise slashes, she tears through the giant scorpion's defenses, effortlessly slicing the creature's jointed limbs. Shell pieces of the defeated monster drop lifelessly onto the sand. Kicking up a large dust cloud on the dunes as the fight wraps up, Yakumo praises the young pink-haired hunter's solid fight work, and she just shrugs, commenting that was no big deal. Seeing the solid teamwork, Tenma concludes they form a solid group and that he will not need to act, but suddenly gets cut off. Akane complains, telling him to at least fake like he is helping, and Prota just scratches his neck, agreeing somewhat awkwardly with the call-out. But out of nowhere, a heavy quake shakes the floor under the warrior's feet, and Tenma senses a massive energy rising from the desert depths. With a serious, worried look, the guy yells, warning everyone that something insanely large is surging fast toward the surface. A massive set of sharp black pincers bursts violently out of the sandy ground, right beneath the exact spot where Akane was standing, guard down. The monstrous creature surges off the sands and manages to clamp the pink-haired girl firm, lifting her body into the air in a flash. She lets out a terrified scream, getting caught by the huge desert demon. While Yakumo preps his shield to try and contain the terrible beast, Yozaki panics, asking what to do. While Yakumo angrily notices his taunt failed due to the major level gap with the monster facing imminent danger, Tenma does not hesitate and sprints at top speed across the sand to help his trapped teammate. In a memory from the ruined future, old Tenma wakes up young Kyoya in the middle of the refugee camp's cold night. He asks for quiet and commands the boy to follow him super sneakily, assuring absolutely nobody catches their exit. Standing near the ruins, Kyoya gets confused and asks why he called him out there out of nowhere and started digging a large hole in the dirt. Prota just points inside the hollow and asks the boy to check out what was hidden inside the dirt. Kyoya gets surprised seeing a bucket packed with snacks and juice. Asking where on earth he managed to gather all that, Tenma explains he worked super hard to score the treats and wanted to hand them over to him, leaving the young boy confused on why he cracks a warm smile and reminds the boy that special day is actually his birth anniversary. Touched by the kind, rare gesture in that cruel world, Kyoya starts crying tears of joy and thanks big time for the gift received. He advises the boy to eat it all in absolute secret to avoid trouble, and the boy cheerfully agrees with a big smile. Suddenly, a violent strike hits Kyoya by surprise, cutting off that happy moment super abruptly. The hooded thief emerges from the shadows with her daggers, leaving the boy dropped on the ground after swiping all his treats. Prota gets furious and recognizes the criminal instantly, screaming in shock the infamous name of Hoshimori right on the spot. But with fast, stealthy moves, she easily dodges and flees, jumping among the dark debris of the ruined city. Trying to block her, the hunter gets struck by a heavy hit and ends up thrown backward with violence by the criminal. Showing zero mercy, the thief gathers all the food scattered on the ground while both stay dropped in the dirt hole. She pops a soda can casually, coldly savoring the loot from the robbery she pulled on the refugees. The hooded girl drinks the soda satisfied, completely ignoring the suffering and pleas of her helpless victims. The empty wrappers and crumpled cans get dumped in the dust, showing she consumed everything they stored with so much effort. Kyoya cries heartbroken, seeing everything gone, and Prota punches the ground enraged. Regretting failing to protect the birthday, Tenma never forgot that cold look and the theft of the rare treats meant for Kyoya's party in the desolate future world back in the present. The guy watches the thief who stole everything, scream frantic for rescue while trapped in the monster's claw. The huge monster roars terrifyingly, leaving Yozaki trembling in fear, while Yakumo tries to figure out a rescue play. Tenma yells for the tank to drop his shield right away, drawing the big guy's attention, who gets startled seeing the guy dash solo. The young hunter sprints fast toward the massive enemy on the sand. Gearing his weapon to unleash a powerful attack, Yakumo struggles to block a heavy monster hit using his protection shield, while Tenma leaps super high right behind him. In mid-air, Prota summons and firmly grips his newly unlocked returning spear, channeling a massive energy aura into it. With total precision, he aims straight at the giant creature's head top, knowing that is the ideal weak spot for the blow. He triggers level 11 throwing skill and hurls the spear with insane speed, creating a massive shockwave. The projectile pierces the beast's armored body with a devastating impact, cracking the tough shell and scattering debris across the dune. The giant creature gets completely destroyed by the crushing strike, causing its parts to slump lifelessly onto the desert sand. Tenma simply drags Akane by the legs away from the wreckage, while she coughs up sand, annoyed after getting rescued from danger. Surprised, Yakumo comments on the guy's big hidden power, while Yozaki stands amazed and Akane coughs dropped on the sandy ground. Tenma coldly looks away from the pink-haired girl, keeping his thoughts locked strictly on the mysteries surrounding that dungeon. She stands up confused upon realizing she was saved so easily by the guy she had been ignoring during the whole desert march. Suddenly, the sand starts rapidly giving way beneath them, forming a giant funnel that pulls everything toward the swirl center. The team gets caught off guard by the sudden collapse of the sandy terrain, which starts sucking all of them toward the hole bottom. Yakumo screams frantic warning. They fell into an antlion trap and orders everyone to sprint out of there as fast as possible. Akane screams scared, getting sucked by the sand dune again, complaining outraged about why that always happens to her. Seeing her spot, Tenma smirks and thinks to himself, that is just a well-deserved karma payback from the future. From a nearby stone hilltop, two mystery-suited figures watch the massive swirl and comment on the group down below. One of them explains the boss's order is to quietly eliminate them, avoid direct clashes, and just secure possession of the demon source. Suddenly, a hand with serrated teeth rests on their shoulder, and a scary voice warns they got the orders dead wrong. The suited intruder looks back scared while the guy adds that taking care quietly simply means killing everyone. It is the cruel Riku Himuro from the Black Knot Villain Guild, who grins sadistically and calls them idiots for wasting the shot. System panels reveal Black Knot is widely known for being one of the main mid-tier villain guilds active in the country. While looking like a respectable, regular organization to civil society, in reality it hides super dark operations behind the scenes. The guild is stacked entirely with dangerous criminal hunters who have pulled off awful robberies, arsons, and murders. In a fancy office, a worker confirms Himuro stepped into the portal and that the Advanced Guild's presence was officially flagged. In the guild office, the master seriously asks his subordinate if he actually handed down the correct orders to the hunters. Hiroki Igarashi, known in the future as humanity's traitor, coldly confirms the order dropped was to slaughter anyone in the way. The subordinate swallows hard, pretty tense, facing his master's scary presence, and confirms the cruel orders were passed down. After giving his confirmation answer, the worker quietly exits the fancy room, leaving the guild leader alone once again. The door shuts, and Igarashi remains seated at his office desk, thoughtfully reflecting on the progress of his evil schemes. Suddenly, he punches the wooden desk violently, ranting with intense hatred and frustration over the snags popping up in the way he screams, outraged, asking how some random guild scored the dungeon, ruining his scheme to quietly recruit D-rank elites. Igarashi trembles in terror upon realizing that if they lose that location's demon source, that terrifying mystery person will definitely kill him. Meanwhile, in the dungeon desert, Black Knot Guild members keep scoping out the spot from atop the rocky stone hill. Riku Himuro snaps his fingers laughing and asks his partner if he lost his mind, since they hold clear clearance to eliminate everyone and there is zero reason to spare them. The squad leader snaps and demands respect, saying he calls the shots there, warning the guy not to stir up unnecessary trouble. However, without a single warning, Himuro dashes fast and grabs the leader's face with extreme force and aggressiveness, catching the subordinate off guard. He crushes his partner's head against the sandy ground without a second of hesitation, displaying absurd cruelty and zero mercy. A massive blood pool spreads across the hot desert sand, confirming the lethal blow silenced the leader for good in seconds. The other worker leaps back in absolute panic, witnessing his guildmate's brutal death right before his eyes. He yells, asking what Himuro is doing, but the villain just coldly replies that now they will fight and die against the enemy. The guy calls him a crazy bastard and demands to know the reason why, making the villain laugh and fire back, asking if anyone needs a reason to kill Himuro, cracks a creepy grin with blood on his hands, and states naturally that he does it all simply because he finds it super fun. Completely terrified by the killer's insane madness, the young guy ends up losing his balance and drops backward onto the desert sands. The psycho says that look of terror and betrayal is irresistible, mocking the fact that his partner is pissed and panicking at the same time. He asks laughing if he is wrong, and attacks the guy showing no pity, ripping out another terrible scream of despair that echoes across the whole region. Now completely solo atop the stone hill, the villain wipes off the blood and calmly gazes out over the vast sunny dungeon horizon. He smirks satisfied and concludes that after wiping out his own allies, now the dungeon contest will be just a 1 versus 4. Meanwhile, Tenma's squad keeps up their desert trek without suspecting a terrible killer is tracking their every move. At night, they gather around a campfire and comment that the dungeon's wild weather swing makes it feel like they are on a campout. Yakumo shares his dream of building a free, unchained guild down the road, taking the moment to invite his teammates to join him. Tenma silently recalls that in pursuit of that freedom, the big guy ended up pulling awful crimes and beating a newbie to death. Yozaki politely declines Yakumo's offer, shyly explaining he already holds other personal plans he aims to pull off later. Looking at him, Prota thinks the activity the young guy wants to do in the future is murder innocent citizens using electricity. Akane also shoots down Yakumo's pitch on the spot, making it crystal clear to everyone there that she holds zero interest in joining guilds. She stands up inspired and reveals with pride that her actual childhood dream is to become a hero of justice for the official association. Tenma finds it ironic a thief wanting to turn hero and stands up to walk out when Akane cuts him off asking where he is heading now. Prota answers with total cool that he is just taking a quick walk around the surrounding dark forest to scout the area. He walks among the leaves thinking daytime might simply not break in this dungeon and decides he should not sit around just waiting. The system triggers memory search, and the guy recalls the traitor Igarashi, revealing in the future that the demon source sits inside that pyramid. Suddenly, level 10, perception triggers automatically through the system, netting him a huge experience boost. With insanely fast reflexes, Prota extends his arm to intercept a sudden rush coming out of the dark. He manages to firmly grab the wrist of whoever tried to sneak up behind him, blocking the suspicious push in a fraction of a second. He pins the person fast against the tree and catches it, is Akane, who lets out a groan of pain over the tight squeeze on her arm. He relaxes and lets go of the girl, who stands outraged asking how he managed to spot her when she was running her best stealth moves. Questioned on the reason for tailing him, Akane explains she did not trust the other two and that her gut told her to stay close to him. Prota mentally reflects that if he can use a certain special skill of Akane's, he can score the source with ease. Without dropping further explanations, he simply commands the girl to follow him, making her ask curious about the walk's final stop. Pointing at the pyramid, he says what she loves most is inside, but the young girl fires back surprised, reminding them they just met that day. She points to her active danger sensor and mocks, saying it is hard to trust him, since he almost got grabbed by a monster earlier. The girl tries to cover her past slip, saying she was not having a good day, and assures he will not regret accepting her help. Keeping silent, Tenma keeps heading up the ancient temple's dark stone stairs without giving much weight to the girl's excuses. Looking at him close, Akane blushes slightly, finding the guy attractive, and decides that having been saved by him earlier, she will trust his words for now. She quickly runs to catch up with him on the staircase and shouts, warning she will definitely not forgive him if he makes her regret that choice. Prota smirks, guessing her danger sensor failed to trigger earlier because the system had already calculated he was going to save her. Walking down the dark temple hall, Akane quietly comments on the heavy bad vibe she is sensing. She scratches her head intrigued and says that weird threat feeling completely vanished out of nowhere. Tenma asks her to just follow him without stress, but the girl fires back, saying her gut points to something valuable sitting in that direction. He insists on telling her to just follow him, while the system alerts that his perception skill experience jumped big time. The panel confirms perception evolved to level 11, now allowing him to view system messages off his teammates hyped. Akane runs ahead, calling out to Prota and promises to demo the full real power of her danger sensor to him. She steps into a dark hall and shouts from afar, saying the spot is completely safe, trying to prove she was right on the route. Suddenly, a giant boulder rolls up behind her, making the girl scream in panic that normally does not usually happen. Sprinting past frantic, Akane shouts, asking if he is not going to run too, but Tenma just casually draws his weapon. With an insanely fast, precise move, Prota obliterates the massive rock with energy slashes, reducing it to dust in the air. Akane stands completely speechless seeing the scene and asks with total seriousness if he is really just a mere D-rank hunter. Thanks to level 11 perception, he catches cracks in the floor and firmly states something super important is hidden down below. The stone floor completely gives way before them, with a heavy thud, opening a secret passage down to the lower temple zone. Tenma calmly comments he just found a shortcut, leaving the girl even more scared and curious about his real identity. The two keep walking down the dark staircases that lead directly to the main chamber, hidden in the heart of the Great Pyramid, stepping into the massive hall. The girl lets out a gasp of amazement and asks if that colossal structure before them is the final boss. The guy recalls Igarashi mentioning the Great Sphinx guarded the demon source, serving as the final trial for visitors. The statue comes to life, demanding they overcome the sandstorm trial, leaving the girl outraged and complaining about getting dragged into it. Multiple glowing red magic circles start spawning and lining up around the large stone platform where the statue sits. Suddenly, a giant wave of fire and energy explodes through the room, blanketing the whole area in intense flames and unbearable heat. Desperate with the flame wall around them, she asks in panic what they're going to do, and Prota answers, pointing to the Sphinx's top nimble. Both build momentum and leap over the fire blasts, landing firmly right on top of the big stone statue. They land safe on the monument's head, managing to temporarily escape the destructive sea of fire consuming the floor. Akane asks if the trial is just surviving the explosion, but Tenma warns they will run a different approach and tells her to prep right away. The young guy coldly says their mission there is to steal, triggering a surprised, outraged reaction off the girl who did not expect that she angrily asks what exactly he wants her to do, and Prota answers with a serious look that she will do what she does best. He holds her hand firm, cutting off the girl's complaints to lock her power onto the raid's main goal. Tenma shows the wallets and says she can swipe anything with her steal technique, exactly like she did when swiping everyone's stuff. Scared over him knowing her secret, she refuses to obey and angrily questions why she has to follow his calls on the quest. While they argue, the Sphinx's eyes glow a crimson red and the statue starts trembling, about to blow up again. A colossal fire detonation swallows the monument top, generating a devastating pressure that threatens to wreck everything around the chamber. "Midst the chaos," he shouts, ordering her not to waste time and use her steal skill on the Sphinx right now if they want to leave alive desperate. Akane triggers her absolute loot skill and bitterly regrets accepting to tag along with the guy on that dangerous temple madness. Tenma rapidly drops his powerful straight line slash to hold back the destructive energy wave and protect the girl during the channel. The panel confirms the use of level 4 absolute loot by Akane, initiating the direct steal of reward items off the Sphinx itself. He admires the stolen power that lets one loot dungeon rewards. While the statue frantically screams, feeling its body crumble, the creature tries to pitch its classic life phases riddle, but the energy steal is so fast it barely manages to finish the sentence. With one last roar of pain, the colossal stone creature completely disintegrates, making both hunters drop onto the floor sand. Tenma sarcastically says she is a great hero, and the girl fires back that it does not matter if it is stealing. As long as it is used for good, the system starts dropping the stolen loot prizes, and Akane curiously checks out the glowing object that just materialized in her hands. A giant mountain of gold coins spawns around her, leaving the young hunter's eyes sparkling with pure happiness over the treasure. Amidst the riches, she holds a small, glowing black box labeled Demon Source and wonders what that item is about. Tenma steps up and snatches the black object from her hands without ceremony, making the girl curiously question that mysterious energy. She looks at her empty hand and thoughtfully comments she already suspected there was something super fishy behind the guy's motives. He promises to explain about the evil energy later and says if she hands over the object, she can keep all the rest of the gold treasure dollar signs in her eyes. Akane asks who he takes her for and takes the deal on the spot, saying she needs nothing else. The panel confirms the retrieval of the first source and grants him a temporary 1-hour bonus to boost scoring rare techniques. He raises his sword to absorb the thick evil energy mist radiating off the mysterious artifact they just swiped from the Sphinx. The Soul Eater devours the object's energy, securing a permanent attack power boost for his main combat weapon. Intrigued, Akane asks how he knew her secret technique, and he lies saying he holds a skill to uncover others' powers. She mentally praises his power and finds the hunter super handsome, happily thinking to herself she can smell money coming off him. The two return quietly in the middle of the night to the makeshift sand camp where their other two teammates are waiting. Yakumo bluntly asks where the two were going together at that hour of the night, leaving Akane red and annoyed by his tone. Tenma says he was just dropping life advice, and she nods, making the leader pretty suspicious of that kind of chat between them. The leader seriously warns that going solo from here on is banned, and Tenma casually agrees, though finding his behavior weird. Standing at the entrance, Yakumo reminds them the goal is scoring the Jewel of Aldoria and pitches beating the boss fast so they do not waste time and stamina. They start walking down the pyramid's grand inner hall when a heavy tremor sound and noise starts echoing loud through the whole place. A massive horde of red-eyed mummies pops up and rushes at them, confirming for Tenma that the terrible boss must be super close by. The guy draws his glowing spear and decides it is a prime chance to take down the weaker enemies and bank a solid stack of points. He throws the weapon with extreme precision, piercing and eliminating 6 mummies in a straight line, which banks him 42 bonus points. The group leader stands amazed by his spear skill and mentally plans to make him work for him down the road to make big cash. Yakumo praises the attack, promising to bring him into his guild down the road, but the guy tells him to stop slacking and pay attention to what is ahead. Akane whispers, asking if he really is D rank, and Prota fires back, reminding he could not enter the restricted portal if he were not. The team runs head-on into a colossal stone block in the middle of the hall, and Yozaki pretty anxiously asks if that mystery structure is the boss. The massive rock cube starts cracking and violently blowing up before their eyes, scattering a huge amount of dust and pebbles. A colossal sand golem with glowing yellow eyes emerges from the rubble, and Yakumo worriedly warns that opponent looks pretty troublesome. Confident in his defense, he triggers his taunt technique and yells to draw the stone monster's aggro, trying to pull it onto himself in the fight. The monster drops a devastating energy punch against the green protective barrier, generating a violent impact wave that shakes the whole setup. The tank's shield fails to hold against the punch's absurd power and shatters into multiple glowing pieces. Leaving the warrior totally unprotected, Yakumo gets thrown with violence and drops knocked out cold and defeated on the stone floor, leaving the rest of the group in a desperate spot. Seeing the main group defender taken out so fast, the young mage goes into absolute panic and frantic screams, not knowing what to do. The colossal stone giant charges full force toward him, making the guy realize scared that Yakumo's taunt technique failed. Terrified, he fires a massive stream of blue electricity at the opponent, frantically yelling for the creature to back off him in the fight. Though the blue lightning beam hits the sand giant's head direct, the magic attack seems to deal zero significant damage to the enemy. He channels all his remaining energy to boost the electric discharge intensity, trying to hold back the colossal opponent's relentless push. The monster simply walks through the electric strike with a heavy punch, breaking the mage's resistance and taking down another squad member in the room. Akane watches the fast defeat of her two partners in absolute shock, asking with a shaky voice if they actually ended up dying there. Prota deduces the monster got way too buffed due to the demon energy leak off the magic source they recovered earlier. Tenma tells the girl to get her head back in the game and run to the opposite side, ordering they repeat the exact same play used in the past fight. The massive dirt opponent builds momentum and leaps insanely high, gearing up to crash down with all its colossal weight on the duo. The giant comes down on the platform with a destructive crash, shattering the whole stone floor and kicking up a massive cloud of debris and dust, triggering advanced perception and footwork skills. Prota manages to dodge with surgical precision past all the falling rubble. He executes nimble air leaps to dodge the giant's massive fist, keeping his eyes locked on catching an ideal counter gap. The guy knows that no matter the size of the sand creature, its actual weak spot and main body is its internal energy core. To destroy it in one shot before it regenerates, he triggers his sword's soul release, massively boosting its attack power and range. With all power focused into his blade, the guy executes his straight-line slash to shatter the giant opponent's dirt shell. The strike's devastating impact breaks the monster's outer sand structure, exposing the glowing red core hidden in its center. At that exact instant, Prota yells out for Hoshimori, indicating it is the perfect time for her to act according to the set plan. He commands the girl to steal the monster's exposed core, and she leaps, extending her arm at high speed toward the glowing object. The panel confirms Akane's absolute loot skill triggered successfully, channeling heavy reddish energy into the core. He reflects that since it runs off magic engineering, stealing ownership of that core will shut down all the giant's functions on the spot. But to everyone's surprise, a message pops up, warning the level gap is way too huge and that the loot technique failed miserably. The sand golem starts recovering its power and rapidly rebuilds its shell around the exposed core, threatening the duo once again. Seeing the giant enemy fully regenerate, Akane panics, asking what to do, and Prada yells, ordering her to run out of there fast. The colossal dirt giant charges with relentless rage behind the two hunters, who flee at top speed down the pyramid's massive hall. Triggering his strength and throwing bonuses, the young guy hurls his weapon with full power to try and slow the massive pursuer's push. The spear pierces the monster's head temporarily and returns immediately to Tenma's hands, who grips it tight to keep up the escape. The system alerts his skills are evolving due to the tough battle, granting him the super rare fast weapon swap technique. The floating panel explains the guy now holds the power to instantly swap between any of his inventory gear. The system warning indicates his attack power will take a temporary 3% boost every time he performs a weapon swap. He masterfully drops his straight-line slash, releasing a massive wave of bluish energy to strike the sand golem. The colossal monster lets out a monstrous roar of pain, getting hit head-on by the powerful strike that shakes it up in the fight. The system confirms level 1 activation of his weapon swap technique, making his magic sword glow blue. The panel alerts the weapon swap skill has already evolved to level 2, showing the glowing spear getting swapped. The technique evolves consecutively up to level 5 in a sec, drastically boosting the young guy's swap speed. The system details the destructive power of swapped weapons received a sweet temporary 15% boost perk. A heavy energy impact pops right in the creature's center, breaking the outer shell and shaking its whole body. He swaps back to his Soul Eater sword, and the system confirms rapid evolution of the skill up to level 8. Dropping another heavy strike, the guy sees the damage bonus off his swapped weapons climb higher, hitting 24%. He pulls a fast swap back to the returning spear, making the system panel confirm the skill hit level 10. The damage perk hits 30% boost, and the system confirms unlocking the bonus effect for reaching max mastery. The warning explains that now Prota is able to instantly infuse any swapped weapon with a solid amount of magic. With all that stacked power, the young hunter hurls his infused spear straight at the colossal enemy's exposed core. The focused attack hits the target with surgical precision, sparking a devastating detonation of energy that shatters the golem's core. The panel confirms the defeat of the dungeon boss and grants Tenma 428 more points, stacking 744. The guy lets out a tired sigh after the tough fight wraps up, and Akane approaches super impressed, praising his solid performance. The system drops the dungeon clearance reward and materializes the glowing, coveted jewel of Aldoria right in front of them. Tenma holds the rare artifact and reads the description, explaining it is a legendary material holding the soul of an ancient warrior queen. She remembers the other partners and runs to check what happened, while the guy feels the best move would be not helping them at all. Prota slowly walks back and reflects that even hit by the golem, both would be fine if they used regular healing potions. Suddenly, Akane stops walking, noticing a mystery outline up ahead in the dark, and scared asks what is going down over there. They catch sight of the terrible Riku Himuro, laughing while dropping a lethal blow onto the neck of the helpless Yakumo, who lies motionless on the floor. The killer mockingly praises the duo's performance and comments on them taking down the Sphinx and Golem with total ease. Riku demands they hand over the demon source immediately if they do not want to end up brutally dead like the rest of their squad. The lifeless body of the young mage Yozaki is shown lying bloodied among the dark hall stones, victim of the villain's cold cruelty. Akane stands completely horrified and trembling over the bloody scene of the slaughter, covering her mouth with her hands in pure shock. Tenma instantly deduces that killer was sent by Igarashi, leader of the Black Knot Guild, to swipe their valuable magic artifact. Riku comments, surprised that the guy is super plugged in, and highlights with a sadistic smile that they actually belong to a villain guild, keeping total cool. Tenma smirks and confirms he holds the demon's source, challenging the dangerous villain to try and take it off him by force. Knowing the enemy operates under orders from the traitor Igarashi, Prota plans to draw all the killer's attention onto himself in battle. The villain mocks, saying the guy is wiped out off past fights, and decides to lock his first rush on him, saving the girl for later. Tenma turns to his teammate and asks if she would be capable of taking out that killer, leaving the pink-haired girl completely surprised. He reminds her of her dream to be a hero, and says that man is a cold killer from a villain guild, forcing her to face the world's reality. Prota steps past her and firmly states, there is zero way to save the world without first getting your own hands dirty with blood. Himuro drops a sadistic laugh and dashes at top speed with his bloodied blade toward Tenma, kicking off the deadly clash. Triggering his level 11 perception skill, Prota tracks every move of the attacker with surgical visual precision. Triggering high-level agility and martial arts, he masterfully dodges every fast knife cut thrown by the sadistic opponent. The guy plants his hands on the sandy floor and drops a devastating inverted acrobatic kick right on the dangerous opponent's chin. The villain gets thrown back by the kick's impact, but manages to quickly regain balance while Prota charges at him, completely furious. Himuro screams, calling the guy trash, and vows to kill him right there before ending the young hunter girl's life too. Deducing that Psycho took out his own Black Knot villain guild allies, Tenma decides he cannot let him walk out of there alive. In one cold motion, the guy's magic sword surges toward the killer's neck, releasing an intense and lethal bluish light. The Tsukishiro-style straight-line slash gets executed with surgical precision, instantly decapitating the dangerous villain in the middle of the chamber. Prota calmly sheathes his magic sword, keeping a cold, locked glare after ending that terrible threat in the dungeon. Akane says killing him was overkill and that they should have locked him up, but Tenma fires back that the villain murdered his two helpless allies, showing zero pity. He reflects that although they were future villains, right at that present moment, they were just regular hunters who had done no harm yet. With a thoughtful, gloomy glare, the young guy internally asks himself if his presence and help could have altered both of their fates. Without looking back, he simply commands the girl to follow along and firmly lets her know their job. There is completely wrapped up outside the dungeon. Fancy cars wait parked under a streetlight glow in the cold mountain night where the large portal exit sits. The suited subordinates sent by Sengoku, relieved approach seeing the two step out and Big celebrate the dangerous quest wrapped up. The worker thanks for the hard work and explains he came in person on behalf of Sengoku, who is out of the country traveling wasting no time. Prota extends his hand and hands over the valuable swiped item as the final reward of that dangerous raid. The man confirms receipt of the Jewel of Aldoria and curiously asks where the rest of the hunters who entered with them are. Tenma simply answers, they died during the dungeon assault, making the suited worker accept the answer without asking questions. Sometime later, Tenma is alone and catches his phone's alert sound floating in the air. Deciding to check the message, the panel confirms progress on the D-rank limit break quest, and he thoughtfully reflects that now only 2 sources remain to collect. Holding super few leads on the other magic sources' locations, he catches that Sengoku's help will be vital for the plan's success. Suddenly, Akane holds out a small green gift box toward him, leaving the young hunter intrigued by that unexpected move. She says he saved her multiple times that day and lets him know that even without the key, the chest should fetch solid cash if sold on the market. Back in his room wearing pajamas, the guy holds the mystery green chest and decides it is the ideal time to check out the contents. The system description shows it is a C-rank storage box, and he catches he will receive a random item when he opens it. The young guy cracks a smirk finding it. Funny that the future's greatest thief handed over something of so much value to him as a gift. However, the second he holds the green metal chest, he senses a weird physical reaction start radiating out of his own pocket. He pulls out the mana crystal key he found in Gondo's office. Catching the tool glowed and reacted immediately to the chest. Holding heavy expectations on what he will find inside, the guy inserts the glowing key into the golden lock and turns carefully. The chest pops open with a click, and an intense, warm, red light bursts out from inside, lighting up the prota's whole dark room. He watches the mystery potion bottle floating in the center of the crimson glow and curiously wonders what the effect of that item could be. The system details it is unicorn blood, a potion capable of awakening the hidden powers of any item it gets applied on. He immediately recalls his defense ring, the powerful, unique rank growth item whose main effects were still sealed. Although the ring is sealed and unable to display its actual strength, the guy catches he just found the perfect fix for that. He drops the red potion drop super carefully onto the ring's metal, seeking to awaken the item's whole, actual, hidden potential. An intense red light explosion takes over the room, and the panel confirms the defense ring's seal was completely broken with success. He smiles satisfied, holding the newly awakened undefeated ring, a super rare growth-type accessory that now holds overwhelming power. On a quiet night, a loud, casual laugh echoes from inside one of the modern apartments in that grand city building. A young girl bursts out laughing on the couch and mocks her sister Yuna, saying she cannot stop laughing over the fact that she got turned down by the guy. Pretty upset and sulking over the situation, Yuna holds her drink and complains about why he has not called yet if he asked for her number. The sister reminds that he predicted and cleared the irregular portal, and Yuna confirms it would have been impossible for the whole team to survive without his help. She silently reflects that she almost died in the portal, but decides not to tell her sister anything to avoid making her even more overprotective. The older sister reminds Yuna that the hunter selection tryouts for the famed Silver Wing Guild will take place in exactly 1 week. The young girl casually suggests she make the move herself and call him already. Leaving Yuna red and screaming from embarrassment, Yuna's sister ties up her hair casually and pitches treating him to a meal so everyone can meet and chat in person. Red and embarrassed, Yuna shoots down the idea right away and angrily shouts, asking why her sister would even pitch such madness. But with a super-locked, serious look, the girl reveals her actual plan is simply recruiting the talented guy for their guild. The next day, Tenma walks casually down the busy, noisy artisan street, where the hunter gear trade runs heavy. Looking around the workshops, he nostalgically reflects that noisy forge spot has not changed one bit since the past. The young hunter pulls his smartphone from his pocket to take a quick look at the screen upon sensing the device vibrate briefly in his right hand. He sees that Sengoku deposited 12 million yen into his account, and amazed reflects that is the largest amount he has ever earned in his whole life. However, he knows that amount is still small to buy elite gear and decides to walk down the street to shop prices with cool. Suddenly, violent collection screams echo out of a nearby alley and grab the guy's attention, who turns his eyes curious to check what went down. A muscular debt collector kicks a young guy dropped on the ground, angrily screaming he will not fall for excuses that the cash will be paid soon. The victim begs for mercy, promising to pay the debt, while Tenma watches him and deduces the victim works as an artisan in the area. But focusing his vision on the face of the young guy getting beaten, Prota widens his eyes and recognizes who that figure is right away. The attacker holds a heavy wooden club and warns that words did not work and that the guy is completely finished today. However, a firm, decided hand suddenly rests on the muscular collector's shoulder, stopping the violent swing. Right in the nick of time, Tenma coldly asks for permission, and the big guy turns enraged, asking who on earth he is, and if he happens to be a friend of the fallen debtor. Without dropping a spoken answer, Prota delivers an insanely fast, heavy punch straight to the attacker's face without hesitating. The punch's crushing impact hurls the violent collector back several meters, making him violently crash against the stone wall. Tenma kneels before the scared artisan and says it is an honor to meet him, leaving the guy pretty surprised over him knowing who he is. Info panels explain that in the ruined future, that young blonde guy would be the sole legendary artisan capable of creating insanely powerful broken items. It is Koji Mochizuki, and Prota knows super well that as a hunter, maintaining a solid relationship with him will bring major perks. He extends his hand to help the guy stand up off the floor, recalling he is the only artisan capable of crafting growth-type items. The two walk together into the interior of Koji's forge workshop, where various metal tools and armors sit scattered around the spot. The artisan asks if he came as a client, and Tenma confirms asking right after why they were beating him like that. Koji scratches his head, laughing awkwardly, and says it is nothing serious, but Prota gets suspicious right away, since that did not look like a small deal. He reveals that a guild called Seihin, led by Ryoma Oshino, popped up charging bogus fees off artisans who borrowed cash. Koji reports the guild runs shady contracts to seize items, stack up debt, and turn peaceful blacksmiths into slaves. He laughingly assures he will stomach the humiliation, making Prota think shocked that his friend still holds the same crazy mindset as before. In his memory of the future, Tenma recalls the blacksmith getting dragged like a prisoner bound by guards through the ruined camp. Even in that extreme capture spot, the old artisan obsessionally mumbled about needing to keep forging the best gear. He screamed desperate begging for his old work hammer, stating he badly needed the tool to manage to forge. At the camp, old Tenma watched that pitiful scene from afar and asked his teammate if that was the crazy guy people talked about. Suddenly, the bound blacksmith rushed frantic at Prota, grabbing his clothes with eyes wide open and full of rush. He screamed up close, saying his old hammer was waiting for him the whole time, hidden and dormant in the dark corner of that old storage. The guards dragged him back, telling him to move already. While the poor prisoner kept screaming his valuable tool was waiting for him, Kiyoya commented, bummed that the artisan had truly lost all sanity, while the man was dragged away screaming for his hammer. Tenma asked the reason for the arrest, and his partner explained he had assaulted refugees to steal jewels to try and craft gear. In the present, Prota reflects that at the time he thought the man was just raving, but catches that everything he said was true. He asks his friend if an old hammer sits around there, leaving Koji super surprised over him knowing about that tool's existence. Asked about the object's current spot, the blacksmith reveals, bummed that leader Oshino ended up seizing and taking the piece the hunter catches, the situation got tricky. Since his actual intent was precisely putting that legendary hammer back into his hands, Koji says he could recover the item if he paid the debt, but asks him not to worry, making Tenma ask the exact amount he owes. The artisan bashfully answers the debt sits around 10 million yen, making Prota scream, surprised at the high figure Koji asks if he needed something. And Tenma answers the only reason a hunter visits an artisan is to order a new item. The guy drops his head sad and regrets that due to his major money issues, doing the job will be super tough right now. Suddenly, Koji points scared toward the spot entrance and warns with a shaky voice that the violent collectors just returned. A mob of goons armed with wooden clubs invades the artisan's workshop, screaming, calling his name in a threatening way. The collector who got beat up earlier points enraged at Tenma, screaming to call his mob boss who came right behind him. He screams, confirming that is the guy who hit him in the alley, pointing his finger right in the middle of the young hunter's face in the workshop. The imposing Saiyan Guild leader approaches, staring at Tenma and coldly comments, he is the one who has been beating on his trusted men. He intimidatingly asks who Prota thinks he is to go to. His gang's territory and start causing so much trouble, Oshino glares close and warns the guy to get the hell out of there right now if he does not want to lose his life over messing in other people's business. Looking close at the mob leader's face, Prota feels a heavy sense of déjà vu and thinks he has seen that face somewhere before. He triggers his memory search skill at level 10 to dig through his future memories and try to identify who that man is. He recalls Sengoku commenting on mobsters trying to suck up to him and handing over a round badge to use as a free pass with memories fully set back. Prota pulls his phone from his pocket upon finally recalling who owned that badge. While the collector tells the kid to clear out so he does not get hurt, Tenma ignores the threats and just waits for the call to connect. He speaks on the phone, letting them know he has a small problem that needs fixing there, and asks if the person on the line can help him out. The mob boss gets intrigued by the kid's mystery, insolent call, approaching annoyed to see what he is scheming. Oshino loses his patience and orders his muscular goons to give the guy a beating to teach him not to pull funny moves in front of them. Unshaken, Tenma extends the device toward the gang leader and calmly alerts that the person on the line demands to talk to him right now. Pretty cranky, the boss complains, asking what he is muttering in a danger spot like that, but ends up grabbing the phone. Sengoku's calm voice picks up on the other side, identifying himself, making the mob leader furrow his brow and ask confused who it is. Realizing instantly who the powerful S-rank hunter on the line is, his eyes widen in panic, and he starts stammering from fear. He screams frantic, ordering his men to freeze everything right now, scaring the goon who was already holding Koji to hit him, breaking into a cold sweat. Oshino hands the device back and complains, saying, if the guy knew the great Sengoku, he should have warned them way earlier. He willingly hands over Koji's old stone hammer, showing total submission and rush to resolve the situation with zero issues. Prota holds the heavy stone tool with his hands and asks the mobster if the hammer he seized was that exact one right there. With the legendary hammer properly recovered in his hands, Tenma discreetly reaches into his pocket to pull out the unicorn blood from there. He checks the bottle and notices that even after using the magic liquid on the ring, a few precious drops of the red potion still remain inside. He pours the last drops of magic blood over the old stone hammer, seeking to awaken all the item's true power for Koji. The stone hammer starts glowing and cracking from the potion, revealing to the panel that the object returned to its original Daedalus hammer form. Tenma holds the legendary metal forge tool, which radiates a mystical reddish aura of extreme power after getting awakened. The young artisan watches that miraculous shift with eyes sparkling in awe and lets out a mutter of total admiration. He takes the hammer back with shaky hands, but asks confused why the hunter is doing so much kindness for him. Prota points to the hammer and reminds his friend that the total debt amount to the Collector Guild sits at 10 million yen. He says he settled the debt and took the hammer as part of the deal, stating with a smirk that now the tool belongs to him desperate. The blacksmith begs, saying he would do anything and that just holding the hammer to work would be enough. Prota smirks, seeing the artisan's desperation, and softly comments that if he really wants the tool back, that bad. He pulls out a paper and pitches that the young blacksmith sign an employment contract to officially start working under his leadership. Without hesitating for a single second, the blonde guy grabs the work contract in a rush from the hunter's hands to sign it at once. He stamps the paper with total rush and determination on the table, leaving Prota slightly surprised by so much hype. Tenma collects the signed document, while the system pings an alert on screen confirming the new deal was officially sealed. Now holding the Daedalus hammer finally in his hands, the blacksmith smiles radiant before his anvil, eager to get back to work. The mob leader cuts off the joy, reminding Koji that he also must not forget the weapon delivery contract he holds with the guild. Oshino reinforces that now that the blacksmith recovered his tools, he must urgently craft the heavy gear they ordered. Koji rests his hammer on the anvil confidently, showing that with that mystic piece, he will manage to craft any gear impatient with the silence. The gang boss demands the artisan hurry up and start forging the ordered weapons right away. The blacksmith explains he will need super large C-rank mana crystals for the forge, making the collector snap and cuss him as a bastard. He screams, saying delays will make the guild lose rights to a portal, and orders the guy to forge anything fast with whatever sits there. Koji insists he needs a large crystal, and the mob boss places his hand on his head, complaining that situation is giving him a headache. Tenma approaches and asks if that portal is C-rank, and Oshino confirms, complaining that the plan to clear it that week went down the drain. The guy offers to help out as a support hunter, and the mobster glares at him confused, asking, no offense, what his rank level is. Crossing his arms confidently in the workshop, Prota simply answers that he is currently registered as a D-rank hunter. The next day, Oshino appears geared up with sword and shield in the open plains under the clear sky of the dungeon they plan to explore. The mob boss comments thoughtfully that technically he is also registered as D-rank, but displays solid skepticism regarding the guy's potential. Looking ahead, he stands shocked, catching the path of destruction and dozens of green monster bodies lying dead all along the grass. Seeing Tenma push forward solo holding his glowing bluish flame sword, Oshino asks himself in shock who on earth that guy with absurd strength is.